Chinese regime is working on a new program to train 3,000 police officers in other countries. Now, this is part of a push by the Chinese Communist Party to extend its influence in policing and global security. And according to a speech by Chinese State Councilor and Minister of Public Security Wang Xiaohong on Monday at the 2024 Conference of Global Public Security Cooperation Forum in Lianyungang, China, he says, is looking to take concrete actions to contribute Chinese wisdom and strength, I think he means CCP on that, to global public security governance. And what better way to contribute Chinese wisdom than to train thousands of police officers from other countries on the Chinese Communist Party's totalitarian tactics, right?
To another edition of Ask Michael Eline. This is where I teach people the law in an unorthodox manner by using examples that we see in the news, case law briefs, but it's all about exposing the Leviathan and its instrumentalities and taking back your rights. Know the law and mean to keep it well. Come here to learn from an expert to know your right. Make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because we never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel. Yo, what's up, guys? So I am attorney Michael Eline, and as you guys know, I am an attorney licensed in California and Texas. I primarily do personal injury law, but I'm also a legal historian and a natural law supporter, and I believe in a constitutional republic where less government means more freedom. And the more the government interferes with our lives and censors us, the less freedom that we have. And it always is quizzical and puzzling to me why politicians and the woke movement wants to silence people who disagree with them, because that's the exact opposite of freedom. That's actually tyranny. That's what happened under the Nazis. And so the woke movement is definitely in my sights right now because it's basically repackaged communism. And I'm going to discuss tonight what is going on. Communist China has incredible influence over our academic institutions and over our politicians. And we know that they've been accused of paying politicians like Menendez, and I think it was Arizona, with gold and silver bars. And we know that Charlie Tree, a communist Chinese general, used to bring in suitcases full of cash for the Clintons. And ultimately that ended up getting the communist Chinese control over the Seal Beach naval weapons station. So we know that they have incredible influence, and politicians, most of them are scum of the earth. And we know that they take payoffs from drug cartels and everything else. And we know that there is an administrative state and they all help each other. And they all sort of watch each other's backs, regardless of what side they're on, because it is a uniparty system that we live in. And so today I'm going to talk a little bit about communist Chinese influence over the United States, over our elections, policing and academic institutions. And then at the end, it looks like they may have found Jimmy Hoffa's body. So we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about Tyreek and his arrest. We're going to have Zos the Ghost, the motorcycle dude that I like. I'm going to play one of his clips, and we're going to expose a little bit about what he thinks about that arrest. He thinks that it was a false arrest. And I think it's going to be a pretty good show. So I started it a little bit early. Hey, what's up, Bo Ghibli one? Yeah, Cops are 5150 and our guy 936. Good seeing you guys. I've had a pretty busy day today. I've been up since about 04, so I'm kind of tired. I've got a little bit more than a 5 o'clock shadow today. But I'm going to try to get through this material. I know it's Friday, so it may not be like the really, really big show, because you guys are probably all out partying, having a good time. But nonetheless, this is going to be a pretty interesting show for you people who like to feed yourselves with knowledge as opposed to just watching cops beat people up and make false arrests. Because what I like to do is discuss the underpinnings of, why the police are doing what they're doing, because they're basically just copying the corrupt politicians that they work for. And that is the exact opposite of a constitutional republic. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. But I want to lay a foundation like I normally would, because I am a lawyer. And we'll just continue to watch this video, which I think is really great. It's from Crossroads. And this is really interesting. So communist China is training 3,000 foreign police officials. We know that, if they loan you money, right, that gives them the opportunity, because they don't want you to pay it back. What they want is to build a military base in your country. And they kind of did that, with the Seal Beach Naval Weapons Station. They literally pull in Chinese communist military warships into that Seal Beach Naval Weapons Station. It's not called that anymore, but just to give you an idea, it even happened in our own country. Now, we know that communist China has great influence over both the Republicans and the Democrats, but it's primarily the left that they're focused on because the left aligns more with communist ideology. No belief in property rights, censorship, silencing people you disagree with. So it fits right in with their agenda. And many people say that the reason why the Democrats left being a middle of the road and went radical left is because of the communist Chinese money and influence over our schools, and everything else in this country. And we're going to get into it. Even the basketball players, right? You can't play basketball in China if you say anything bad about the communist Chinese, right? So let's just, let's think about that. Let's think about what's going on. And then we'll talk about a little bit about X and what happened when Musk took over X, then Twitter, and how the left just completely exploded. They were so angry that they no longer controlled like 99% of the narrative. And all of a sudden there's a fracture in their propaganda machine. And so they're trying to silence X worldwide. And so communist China was able to gain a stranglehold over the government of Brazil. And what was one of the first things they did besides becoming communist was to eliminate private firearms ownership, censorship galore. And now they've outlawed X. So this will be a really interesting show, hopefully for you guys who, and by the way, I'm not a political guy. I used to be a Democrat, but the Democrat Party left me. I didn't leave the Democrat Party. I've always been a social liberal and a fiscal conservative, like a John F. Kennedy, right? I believe that less government means more freedom, probably more like a Reagan Democrat, if that makes sense. But let's get into it really quick, and then we'll keep on going and talk about the radicalization of the police and the woke movement and how it has created this environment.
Right? Now, here's more on the program from South China Morning Post. Remember, under China's Alibaba, they say this: China will help train 3,000 foreign law enforcement officials over the next year to tackle global security issues and better protect Chinese interests beyond its borders. And that's the key part here, right? Protect Chinese interests. The country's public security minister said. And it said China will also send police consultants and working units to countries to help improve their law enforcement capacity, conduct joint patrols and investigations, and tackle cross-border crime, according to this individual. And it says as well that Beijing, the CCP, is seeking ways to boost its presence beyond its borders to protect overseas interests while offering an alternative to Western-led global security governance, meaning pushing back against the United States.
Yeah.
And notes also that on Monday, Wong met security officials from Malaysia, Myanmar, Zambia, Nicaragua, and Russia, and told them that China, the CCP.
And so also something really interesting is China is actually doing the job of the traditional Americans when it comes to destroying the Federal Reserve, the private bank that we call the Federal Reserve System. There's nothing federal about it. It's a private corporation. It was created on Jekyll Island, basically, and it is basically a collection agent for banks. And the banks create paper money. It's called fiat currency. It's not backed by anything other than the promise of the United States to make good on the money. So China has said, no, screw that. We're going to go back to what the U.S. Constitution actually says we're supposed to have, which is a currency that's backed by gold or silver, right? Something that's backed by something of intrinsic value, not just some fake promise. And so as a result, that's devastating the U.S. monetary, it's not money really, it's fiat currency, but our fiat currency system is being undermined by what's called BRICS. So communist China has formed an alliance with Russia, Brazil, I think even Nicaragua and other countries that hate America. And they're trying to wipe out the US dollar. So it's no longer the reserve currency of the world. And of course, most of my followers know that I've always disagreed with private bankers being able to take over our country and how politicians basically destroyed the Constitution by allowing that to happen. And now it looks like China is basically mimicking or imitating our original currency system. They've basically been buying up all the gold and silver across the world so they can have currency that's backed by something of value. So bravo to China for copying the original U.S. Constitution. And shame on the politicians in America for allowing the Federal Reserve System to exist at all by selling our sovereignty to bankers who basically could care less about you. And we see that those people are like the Bill Gates, they're the Klaus Schwabs, the globalists, right? But now there's a battle over who's going to be the global power. Is it going to be China or America? And so we're going to watch this. We're going to learn about what China's doing, and then we're going to get into some other cool stuff.
He was willing to cooperate in the fight against telecom fraud, drug trafficking, and other cross-border crimes, boost security along the Belt and Road infrastructure projects, the CCP's infrastructure projects, and help and offer criminal judicial help, according to state-run media Xinhua. And remember as well that when the Chinese Communist Party is offering to stop drug operations, the CCP is also fueling them on the other side.
That's right.
Now, here's a bit more on the
coming across the border
of what this entails, this whole global.
So when Joe Biden opened our southern border and allowed at least 20 million illegals to illegally infiltrate our country, along with all those illegals came silver and gold from China for our corrupt politicians and drug cartels. Every illegal that comes across pays at least $5 to $6 grand or more to the drug cartels. So we basically have been enriching the drug cartels by opening our southern border. And many of you may or may not know that Trump had an executive order in place. It was called the Shelter-in-Place Order that disallowed people from just flooding our border and getting free stuff. And what the Biden administration did is they worked with non-governmental organizations like the Catholic Church and started flooding our country with illegal aliens. And they created a network of to help people sneak in illegally, tell them what to say to the administrative hearing officers so they couldn't be deported. And now we know the backlog is about 7 to 8 years before they have their hearings. So in the meantime, they get free phones, free food, free hotels, and apparently in Springfield and other parts of Ohio, they get free cats, dogs, and geese. And we have the left saying, oh, that's not happening, or it didn't happen in Springfield and therefore it's not happening. But that's bullshit. We've seen the video. We know what's happening. We know that Haitians are into voodoo. We know they like to eat cats and dogs, at least some of them, according to many in the news anyways. And many videos that we've seen, we know that voodoo involves animal sacrifice. And we know that there is a leader in Haiti right now because of the revolution they had there called barbecue. And what he likes to do is eat his enemies. And so we're letting those people into our country. Go figure.
Police push. South China Morning Post said this September of 2023, 1 year ago. China's top police chief has called on world powers to strengthen cooperation on public security as Beijing seeks to expand its influence in global governance. Now, they noted, again, a year ago,
and somebody get rid of fog. We already know that they're eating
build a network of cooperation on public security.
Do that every day.
Individual told the forum that with more resources and advantages, the CCP should take the lead in upholding fairness and justice in the international community. And here's the important part: take a stand against hegemony. Now, hegemony is, of course, a reference to American hegemony. And they say that America's security operations abroad, pushing back against human rights abuses and those things, represents American imperialism and hegemony. The CCP wants to unseat the United States as kind of the world government, the one that maintains order in the world, and they want to replace that with the CCP's model, again, the China model. So when they talk about fighting back against hegemony, they want the Chinese Communist Party to become the new hegemon. Now, they note that last year's gathering, organized by the China Association for Friendship, and this is important, is themed One World, Common Security.
There you go.
And also, law enforcement officials and academics are among the more than 500 attendees from 50 countries and in regions including the United Kingdom, Russia, Myanmar, Thailand, Vietnam, and Egypt, and also organizations including Interpol. Now, there's a lot to dig into here, but first, the mention again of hegemony really details the CCP's kind of want for this. It's trying to create a new system of global governance, unseating the United States and replacing it with the Chinese Communist Party.
That's right.
And also the CCP's new operation to train these three.
In the World Economic Forum, Gavin Newsom and all these other clowns of the WEF, they seem to be pushing towards the China relationship and away from the American one, because the enemy of the left is free speech, freedom, monetary freedom. And so naturally, they're going to move towards the totalitarian government that silences anyone they disagree with, just like they do on U.S. college campuses to this day.
1,000 foreign law enforcement officials announced during this year's one. There are several parts to this. One is the CCP's existing operations to get its forces deployed under the United Nations for so-called peacekeeping operations.
Yeah, right.
Another ties into the CCP's influence over Interpol, which they do, by the way. I'll get into that. Now, this all stems from its Global Security Initiative, which the Chinese Communist Party launched in April of 2022. And there are several parts to this. One part is how this relates to the Chinese Communist Party's existing operations to get its forces deployed under the United Nations for what they call peacekeeping operations, you know, the UN peacekeepers. The CCP is using that to bring its agents to other countries to carry out that role. It's using the United Nations as a vehicle for that. Another ties into the Chinese Communist Party's influence over Interpol, the international police, which the CCP has headed for a long time and even punished people before for not enforcing the CCP's interests through Interpol. And another is related to the Chinese Communist Party's agenda to create a new security group within the Eurasian region, something was pushing recently at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, again tying into what we discussed before about the creation of the Eurasian Empire, controlling the Eurasian region. Now, look, this also ties in other projects, including the Chinese Communist Party's use of secret police stations. You might remember the news. The CCP was establishing these secret police stations in New York City and other parts of the US and other countries around the world, running police operations openly in these countries in some cases, enforcing CCP's laws, harassing dissidents, while again trying to stay away from the normal authorities of the country. This is two sides of the same program. The role on the so-called China Association for Friendship, notably, we talked about before, that the China Association for Friendship ran one of their previous big movements on this with other countries.
Hey, what's going on? Let's
tie into something important, because the secret police stations, they typically run through United Front operations. And those United Front operations typically go through Chinese Communist Party tongs. Tongs are like fraternal organizations or associations. And these often include names like the Friendship Association. And so it does appear the CCP is using these same networks as the secret police stations to also, again, use this global policing push. But here, this is also important because it relates not just to the CCP's operations to work with foreign police, right? The one they're announcing right now, or even agreements, notably, that allow the Chinese Communist Party to even just directly deploy their police to other countries. Now, The Guardian noted this. They said China, the CCP, will train thousands of foreign law enforcement officers so as to see the world order, quote, develop in a more fair, reasonable, and efficient direction under the CCP, of course. And that's according to its Minister for Public Security. And it's that Beijing has linked the GSI, this new police program, to its brokering of agreements between Iran and Saudi Arabia and the development of its peace proposal for the Ukraine war. It is seen by analysts as a vehicle to reshape the current US-dominated world order. Again, they're trying to topple the United States and what it represents. Topple the Pax Americana, the peace under America, and replace it with the Pax Sinica, the peace under China. The CCP's model for this. They don't look to get rid of like hegemony. They want themselves to become the new hegemon. The GSI concept, notably it says here, appears to include a run of bilateral security and policing agreements made with developing nations in recent years, particularly in Africa and the Indo-Pacific. They note that this recent announcement suggests that number is increasing, with Wang, the head of that security organization, noting that China has already trained 2,700 foreign law enforcement officers in the past year. And again,
And so just really quick, guys, the show that I did the other day, maybe a lot of you guys probably didn't notice, we got deleted. They deleted the whole freaking show. So you know the YouTube censors are really upset at me. In fact, if you do a YouTube search for Haitians eating cats, all you'll see is the typical Google response where they put all the stuff up at the very top that says it's all fake and it's not real and Trump lied and all this. But I know from friends who actually live in Ohio that animal sacrifices are on the rise because of this. And there's more than enough stuff on Twitter where you can see it happening. And we know based on the footage from Haiti that it's very, very common. And there's just so much overwhelming information, but it's just amazing how the censorship machine, which, by the way, communist China was helped by Google to create their censorship machine and their social credit system. A lot of people don't know that. So let's keep on watching.
These officers will be the ones who go and carry those, trainings and teach others how to do it. The last week after a China-Africa forum, Beijing, the CCP, announced that they will train 1,000 more police enforcement officers for the African continent and jointly ensure the safety of cooperation projects and personnel. It was not immediately clear if those 1,000 officers are included in the 3,000 cited by Wang on Monday. Now, the agenda here is the push for, again, a multipolar world order.
That's right.
Tying in again to this whole China model and tying again to what we discussed about the Eurasian Empire. The Russian government, whether it's, again, their interests or Chinese interests, they keep talking about the multipolar world order, the creation of this new world order. What does that actually mean? Well, the multipolar world order tends to refer to the destruction
right on,
of
Mr.
what
Glock
they call
29.
the unipolar world order. Unit 1, right, being the United States. The peace under America would be defined as the unipolar world order. If you're going to create a multipolar world order, that means taking a global authority away from the United States, taking global power away from the United States, especially when it comes to the ability to sanction and hold countries accountable for those types of human rights abuses, and create a system of global shared governance. Again, what they call the multipolar world. It's no longer one nation having a voice. It's all the nations
absolutely
having different regional representation, whether it's like the African Union or something else, coming together and having representation on a shared plane where the United States is just one of many powers. Right. But the important part here is they're not looking to have an actual multipolar world. They still want a unipolar world, but it's under what they call the China model.
Yeah, like now, California. California is the China model.
The CCP is creating joint police patrols with other countries as well, and also with other global security pushes. I'll be talking more about this after we come back from a quick break.
Experts agree. So, one of the best ways to...
That was enough of that one. I don't want to get you guys too bored, but basically this is what's coming to a city near you guys, whether you like it or not. If you keep on voting or allowing voting machines to pass these votes and the U.S. Post Office to deliver them.
Where are your papers, Mav? Where are they? Oh, you don't have any papers?
And that's basically what it's all about. The goal is to use their people in the United States to silence people like Elon Musk as well as me. And we know that they're doing a damn good job at it. And once Twitter goes down, they'll be right back to where they were about 3 or 4 years ago, where they have basically a lockdown on all the news. We know that ABC, Communist News Network, CNN, PMS, NBC, all of those news stations are hardcore leftists and basically purveyors of misinformation and disinformation, but yet they get to decide what's true or false. And we can get into that some other time. But this is what's going on. We have China has now, look, China has control over Brazil now, lock, stock, and barrel. And what was one of the first things Brazil did? Silence X. Let's take a look.
When Brazil established its relationship with China, Brazil was significantly richer in per capita terms. It had a military dictatorship, so it wasn't too friendly with China, and the Chinese were looking to transfer technology out of Brazil into China. But 50 years later, that has definitely changed. Now China is significantly richer. It takes up roughly a third of Brazil's exports and 20% of Brazil's imports. So Brazilians, we tend to look more to China with some hope.
There is a sense that the U.S. lost a lot of time involved in wars in the Middle East, and they sort of forgot the Indo-Pacific region. That's why China was able to grow so much. So there are not many resources. So anytime you go to these meetings, and I even wrote a column about this to Folha de São Paulo, a Brazilian newspaper, saying that the U.S. lost Brazil. And I do believe that they lost it.
Absolutely.
It's because like they complain, but they don't offer alternatives. Okay, so you don't want.
Well, the U.S. didn't really lose Brazil. I mean, the U.S. is becoming more like Brazil. I mean, after this next election, depending on who gets elected, it may become worse than Brazil, right? I mean, we already know that these people target their political enemies. They may even be trying to take them out, right? Fight, fight, fight. We don't know. But it's pretty wild what's going on out there. So let's get into our Brazilian buddy. This is the Brazilian Supreme Court Justice, communist, who decided that Elon Musk needs to be silenced.
I think yesterday was the first day where Brazil banned Twitter. So X is illegal to have in Brazil. Not only is it illegal, but you go through it through a VPN and they will charge you $8,000 a day.
It's incredible that we are watching this.
Insane.
It's insane.
I think yesterday was the first day where Brazil banned Twitter.
Watch it one
so
more
X
time.
is illegal to have in Brazil. Not only is it illegal, but you go through it through a VPN and they will charge you.
Now, here's what's scary, guys. You go on to a typical college campus right now, and these pink-haired, purple-haired kids, they think that this is good. It's good to silence X because it's hate speech if they disagree with it. It's crazy what's going on in this country. Give me a bunch of ones if you guys agree that it's insane to silence people just because you disagree with them. If anything, you want them to talk more so other people can see whether they agree or not, because you don't have to accept what people say. You can just disassociate yourself from them. But instead, you know, the college academia has basically morphed into a communist Chinese style system. Our academic institutions, when you go on campuses, safe spaces, no white people allowed, self-segregation. It just reminds me of the communist Chinese mentality. It's just blowing my mind. Give me a bunch of ones if you guys agree with me. Oh, look at this. Rami says that Walmart in Alberta, Canada, no longer accepts U.S. cash starting September 23rd. I believe that. I mean, come on. Canada is about as communist as you can get. I mean, Trudeau worships Jing Xiaoping or whatever his name is, right? And if I was to travel to China, I would immediately be arrested and thrown in jail for saying something negative about the communist Chinese. I mean, is that the kind of system that you want to live in as Americans? Of course not. And many say that that's the reason why they're flooding the country with inbred people from countries like sub-Saharan Africa, where we know there is a real high level of inbreeding. And so the average IQ in an inbred family is about 60, according to some of the information that I've read online. You can fact check me if you want. And that's why a lot of them look identical to each other. When you see families, they all look exactly the same. It's because of inbreeding. And so when you flood the country with people like that, by the way, inbred people are prone to violence. And many people do say that that's why they become jihadis, because they're already violent. So there's just a lot of things that are starting to add up to me that are starting to make sense. But if you flood the country with people who are not critical thinkers and who have always been in a single party system like Nicaragua, right? A communist country like Nicaragua, that is exactly the people they're bringing up to our country. They're giving them free phones, free food, and just bringing them across the border and getting them free stuff. And we know that the U.S. Census, that's how California picked up so many seats, is with illegal aliens, right? So the census creates seats, and it changes the electoral college. So over 20 million illegals. I just don't see how the constitutional republic is going to survive unless they get deported. It's unsustainable. And this is exactly what communist China wants. I mean, if we wanted to take out communist China, the best way to do it would be to flood their country with a bunch of maniacs and crazy people that don't support their culture. And so think about that, guys. Think about that. Think about that. If you have children, if you have a wife, or you have kids, is this the kind of system that you want to have them grow up in? Pretty scary stuff, guys. Pretty doggone scary. Now, we're going to get into the next video. Here. This is about the Communist Chinese Party's influence on U.S. academic institutions. And this is absolutely wild. This is going to blow your mind.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. And thank you to our witnesses for being here today. Dr. Greitens, I want to come to you. General McMaster wrote something that I really like. He pursues the three-pronged approach when he's talking about the CCP: co-option, coercion, concealment. in how they pursue military fusion. And I find that so interesting because that is one of the issues that really hits us in the face when we look at how China approaches this. And I know you've done a lot of study.
It's only
on
a few
this.
minutes.
So
It's worth the
what I'd
watch.
like for you to do is to lay out your concerns and also your recommendations on how we should proceed as we deal with each prong, knowing that we do not practice civil military fusion. You know where our commerce
Right,
department
Jeff?
is, and you know where our defense industry begins.
Me too, man.
So if you would just lay that out and then talk about how that affects our academic and research institutions.
Thank you, Senator. That's a really important question, and I'm happy to try to cover it as much of it as I can, and I'll follow up.
Let me just say this, if you want to give a highlight and then submit to me for the record, I think that is something that as we look at the NDAA, we need to think this through and have a more thoughtful approach to this. You hear us talking about semiconductors, you hear us talking about AVs and EVs and AI, and there is an integration of every bit of that. So hit the highlights and then Mr.
Double
Plattner,
tap the
I have
screen,
a
guys. Give
question
me
I
some
wanna
love.
come to you
Double
on.
tap for the like.
Yes, thank you. Let me bracket the question of semiconductors because we've had a little bit of a chance to discuss that already, and I'm happy to follow up with you after the hearing to discuss that. And I'll focus principally on your question about higher education for the moment. I think American higher education is in the midst of a reckoning and a recalibration of its relationships with the People's Republic of China. I would look at 4 different areas in thinking about the challenges that China's role poses for American higher education. First of all is research security. One of the things that you all are considering is an enormous amount of investment in American research, particularly in tech and the sciences. And it's really important that that funding not immediately gets siphoned off via illicit
Yes,
tech
and as you're
transfer
aware,
to
we
China.
have a trial going on in Knoxville, Tennessee this week with a UT professor. And we also have an issue with a Russian spy that somehow became connected to Oak Ridge. So very aware of that. Thank you for mentioning it.
Yes, and thank you for your attention to that issue. I think one of the things that needs to happen
right.
is tighter requirements, and I've publicly supported and written about some of these in the past, of disclosure of both funding coming from China or other foreign countries. It's not just a China problem, but the size of the funding is a lot bigger, and talent program participation. I can tell you from having been at 2 American flagship public universities that the disclosure process is not standard across different institutions, and I would support some standardization and some collaboration between the Department of Education, American universities, and other parts of the federal government to ensure that disclosures are more uniform and more complete. Second, I think I would commend some excellent work by Mary Gallagher that I'd be happy to provide to the committee, where she looks at the role of Chinese student and scholars associations. This is less an issue with espionage or tech transfer than it is in the social sciences and for free speech and free inquiry on campus, which is a fundamental value of American society and American higher ed. Her suggestion is that given the nature of the funding and the close coordination between these CSSAs, the shorthand, and some of their relationships with Chinese government entities like consulates in the United States, that it may be appropriate for them to register as foreign agents.
Double
under the
tap.
Foreign
Yeah,
Agents
that's right.
Registration
Double
Act.
tap.
So that's a second recommendation. Third is that I think we need to grapple with the increasing use of what I would call lawfare, meaning lawsuits and sanctions that punish researchers who publish work that is critical of the Chinese Communist Party.
That's what's
And we've seen
happening
that
all over the
recently
world.
with researchers and people who've been advocates for human rights in Europe.
And by the way, it's the same thing with big PHARM, right? The same exact crap. You can't even say the words on this show, right? Or they'll just pull down your channel, right? That is how much power these large corporations have. They literally can just take down your channel if you disagree with communist China or these big giant companies that do stuff to you that a lot of people say is dangerous. So let's keep watching. It's almost over.
And in North America as well. Much of this will be more of a university level conversation, but I think Congress has a role in setting
You're probably right.
expectations for the support that will be provided.
That's right.
To
What's the
people,
matter, you?
If the pressure from the Chinese Communist Party gets brought to bear. The last thing is that I think we have a pipeline problem. In that during the Cold War, we funded open source translation and we funded the development of a cohort of analysts and experts who really knew the Soviet Union and were reporting in real time about a lot of developments. That pipeline, from my perspective as someone who trains doctoral students and researchers, is too thin. And so I think as we talk about federal funding, and as we look at investments, a relatively small investment in social sciences and open source translation services to build the intellectual base that we need for our long-term.
So I'm looking at some of the comments in the sidebar. I got to tell you, I can tell that I have an overwhelming male audience. Comments like she needs to get her hair pulled and stuff. I'm laughing. And so River Apperly says, SHIT, sometimes girls like that are the freakiest ones out there. No, it's not sometimes, it's most of the time. The more educated people are, the more likely, and this is based on psychological studies, the more educated people are, the more likely they are to engage in like swinging and other kinds of things that would be considered sexually deviant activity. So you're actually right, River. Mama Lion said she has a pipe. Did she say we have a She did say we have a pipeline problem. Mama Lion, tisk, shame on you, girl. So Mama Lion must make up the 1% of my audience that are females. Because as you guys know, I am a jarhead. Although I'm a lawyer, I am still just one of you guys. I work construction most of my early days. My dad was a contractor and forced me to work with all the crews. So I can build a house from the ground up by myself. I can dig the forms. I can pour them. I can do the electrical, the plumbing. I can put up the sticks. I can do the finish framing, you name it. I used to be a licensed C-47 contractor in California, which is the same thing as a B1, except I also had to know electrical. So I actually know, I'm not a licensed electrician, but I know how to do electrical work better than 90% of the people on this planet. So you're with a guy who is the typical construction worker mentality, but I got the tie on. But other than that, I love you guys. Thanks, AgeGo. Thank you, Kinetic Customs and Cops R 5150. What's the matter, you? You guys are awesome, man. You guys are absolutely awesome. And then Shelby De Los Santos says, George Carlin made up some good points on one of his stand-ups. We have privileges, not rights. And that is unfortunate that even our courts have described our unalienable rights as a privilege. Like Fifth Amendment privilege. Well, privileges are for slaves. Free men and free women don't have privileges. We have rights that are granted to us by our Creator, according to the Declaration of Independence, John Locke, and our founding fathers. But the modern day woke movement, they hate most of this stuff and they don't believe in any of that. And they want to make us, many would say, like communist China. Let's let her finish up.
Competition is going to be an important measure to consider. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And Mr. Pottinger, I'm going to come to you with a written question pertaining to electric vehicles and the supply chain issues that we face
Get her hair pulled.
there with electric vehicles. We also see the same thing in pharmaceuticals, but of course we have an administration trying to really incentivize $200 billion into EVs. But what I've learned by talking to some of our researchers,
they use gas generators to charge the stations. What a joke.
Support base for that, and I will send that in writing to you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so let's move on to the next one. So this is the end result of our government not caring about us and caring more about money. Let's go ahead and see what's going on.
Out of a Brooklyn federal court, charged with acting as an undercover agent for Beijing. The feds say the 41-year-old Chinese-born U.S. citizen used her position as former aide to New York governors Kathy Hochul and Andrew Cuomo to directly help the Chinese government.
That's right.
She allegedly used her government rules to quietly push China's agenda.
The 65-page indictment has Sun facing 10 criminal counts, including money laundering, visa fraud, trying to block New York State officials from meeting with Taiwanese government representatives, and changing some of the state's policy messaging to benefit the communist government's priorities.
These actions reportedly gave China influence in New York's government for nearly a decade.
Governor Hochul expressed outrage at the betrayal and said Sun was fired the moment misconduct was discovered. In exchange for acting as a foreign agent, Sun and her husband, Chris Hu, charged as a co-conspirator, received millions of dollars in Chinese kickbacks, allowing the couple to splurge on multi-million-dollar homes in Hawaii and Long Island, buy a 2024 Ferrari, enjoy travel benefits, tickets to events.
And by the way, the vice presidential candidate under Camel Toe is a hardcore, like, China lover, right? So we know he's made, 30 or 40 trips to communist China. He talks about the communist Chinese government the same way that Trudeau does. And so they're basically just paying off our politicians. That Dianne Feinstein or Barbara Boxer, one of them had a communist Chinese spy as their driver, their limousine driver, whatever, for like 20 years. And then Swalwell was banging his communist Chinese intern. And so what they do is they take these incredibly attractive young communist Chinese women and they bring them to our colleges on like as foreign exchange students. And then they get jobs, working, as aides or pages for Democrat politicians. And they just basically have their own internal spy agency. And many in the government believe that what's really going on is they're making financial agreements with these people in order to buy votes in Congress. So it's very, very dangerous what China's been able to pull off.
And on 16 different occasions, reportedly got Nanjing-style salted ducks specially prepared by the personal chef of a Chinese government official. Breon Peace, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, said Sun wielded her position of influence among executives to covertly promote PRC and CCP agendas, directly threatening our country's national security. Prosecutors say Sun actively concealed that she took actions at the order, request, or direction of CCP officials.
This case is part of a broader effort by the Justice Department to uncover secret Chinese agents in the U.S.
The couple pleaded not guilty to all 10 charges in federal court Tuesday afternoon. George Thomas, CBN News.
All right, so that was kind of cool. Now, here's what you got to understand. The communist Chinese are actually the ones behind the woke movement. They're pushing it on these academic institutions. I mean, what a great way to destroy America than to teach a whole generation of the future politicians and public school teachers with their blue and pink hair that boys are really girls and girls are really boys, that all of our founding fathers were evil white men. I mean, this is exactly what you would want to do to your enemy if you wanted to destroy them from within. So let's go ahead and give it a listen and you'll understand more about what I'm saying.
Adherence to traditional religion is in decline. Something new is taking its place, and I'm deeply concerned about what the results might be.
Everybody give your motherfucking me! I will love my black neighbors the same as my white ones.
It's a religion. A false
you may
religion.
lose God from your society. As a non-believer, I have very mixed views about that. But just because you've lost God from your society doesn't mean you don't have God-shaped holes. A massive God-shaped hole in our society is what the hell people are meant to be doing with their time here on Earth. The woke answer it with a pretty good answer of their own, which is that life can be most meaningfully lived by fighting for justice.
Right on, what's the matter, you?
The never-ending fight for justice has become a new political religion that is based largely around the concept of intersectionality. Intersectionality is the idea that people can have more than one overlapping marginalized identity characteristic. Whoever has the most marginalized characteristics is the most oppressed and has the best access to truth. As a result of prizing subjective experience over objective truth, it is nearly impossible to have productive conversations on important issues, and many otherwise intelligent people have started to believe and act in ways that they otherwise would not.
It's not enough. Please stop.
It's not just that it's just spontaneously or arbitrarily pops up. There's a system in place that manufactures these ideas. They look at the universities as their own particular ideology mill, and they indoctrinate people into intersectionality. These are people who are teaching very dangerous ideas. What makes those ideas dangerous is that they're divisive. We start looking at each other in terms of race. This does not advance civil rights causes. It's exactly the opposite. One of the reasons this has taken such sway is because there's a kernel of truth to all of it.
That's right. There is.
As a result of the tragic killing of George Floyd and others, books like
So let me give you an example. When you talk to one of these woke religious fanatics, they're like the Jim Jones of the 2024s. When you talk to them, it's so perplexing because they're basically, they're in one of these situations where you can't have a logical conversation with them. They're totally encapsulated by like a religious belief system. And if you disagree with them, it's hate speech. That they literally teach you this on the college campus. It's hate speech to disagree with these guys.
White Fragility and How to Be an Anti-Racist have once again become bestsellers as people try to make sense of race in America and figure out what they can.
And so the woke movement, when it comes to what's that thing they're trying to teach that the NEA wants to teach in the public schools? Critical race theory. So a lot of people say, but critical race theory is just teaching history. There's nothing wrong with that. Look, I agree that, there were slaves in America. There were black slaves. There were white slaves as well. And that's totally fine. But what critical race theory does is it teaches little kids, like kindergarten age kids and college kids, that white people are oppressors and that all the other races are victims. And they're brought up from childhood to think they're victims. And then, of course, the white kids are just like, well, what if I get a rainbow flag and I just go along with it and crucify myself and then I can fit in? It's all about peer pressure. And that's why so many people are pulling their kids out of public schools, by the way. Let's keep listening.
Can do to help. The problem is that these books are acting as poorly written religious tracts that convey concepts like all white people are racist and literally everything in life revolves around race. Masses of people are being indoctrinated into a new religion without even realizing it. It probably doesn't feel like indoctrination. Many people may just think that we are finally waking up to injustice. The truth, however, is much more dismal. The iconic texts of the woke religion are intentionally divisive, and the end goal is not equality. Objectivity, reason, and even science itself are considered to be white, male, Western constructs, rather than simply being the best tools we have to understand reality.
Right.
This kind of thinking is being put.
So let me share something with you. Most of you guys know I was in the Marine Corps, and I'm still heavily involved in the Marine Corps, helping disabled veterans and people who are EAS getting out, and Marines awaiting separation. And what I'm hearing is that they do these racial like anti-racism classes for the NCOs, and officers have to go to these things. And they literally teach you, they literally are telling them that merit is racist. So being promoted based on your merit, like your achievement, is racist. That they're literally being taught this, which is actually the exact opposite of what the military teaches. So if I was communist China, I would love that. I mean, look, nobody wants to join the military because traditionally people like me would join the military. But I would never join the Marine Corps today, knowing that I'm going to be told that I'm a racist and that merit, you should be promoted based on race or the fact that you like to ball some other dude. That's ridiculous.
Pushed on people of all ages.
We now even hear of children being told that if their parents or grandparents do not agree with the views that they have been given, then they should distance themselves or condemn their parents and grandparents. And I think, by the way, that this is revealing of nothing so much as a cult. Any movement that says that people you love who do not entirely agree with the point of view that you are told to believe, that you should distance yourself from those people, that's a cult.
That's right.
It's a cult.
One key aspect of successful indoctrination is not being aware that it's occurring. It took me a while to realize it, but I know what it's like to be indoctrinated and to have my view of reality drastically altered by religion. I grew up in a small conservative town where nearly every aspect of my life was controlled. I was brought up in a fundamentalist sect of Christianity and was sheltered from much of the outside world. Any secular influence had the potential to lead me into sin, so it had to be kept away. Similarly, the woke are creating an environment in which speech and actions need to be controlled or silenced. Anything that doesn't conform to this puritanical worldview is simply wrong. There are goals to be reached, and the ends certainly justify the means. Workplaces and schools are being segregated for special diversity trainings. Desperately needed police units are being defunded, and people are taught that their skin color is something to obsess over rather than ignore. But this is all done in the name of justice, and it's seen as virtuous.
Why do you think people are so hoodwinked by this?
Because it's an answer to a number of very big questions. It says in a quasi-religious manner, in fact, it's better than religion, isn't it? Because religion says if you sort these things out, then in a life to come, you will find salvation. And the social justice activists and the intersectionists and much more say, if you do all of these things, we can get justice here on earth.
So one of the reasons I think people are so hoodwinked, I think they're hoodwinked by language. I think they're hoodwinked by these words. Equity sounds really good. Inclusion sounds really good. Diversity sounds really good. Safe space sounds really good. All of these words sound good. And most people, they don't really know what they mean. I mean, just think anti-racism.
Yeah, who's not on board with that?
If you don't know the moral underpinnings of that, or Black Lives Matter. Well, of course, Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. Once people agree on the reprehensible nature of racism,
absolutely,
homophobia, bigotry, misogyny, once they agree on that, then of course they want to be on the side of the people opposed to all of that. The problem is then you jump onto the side of all the people who are opposed to all that, and you discover they can do things as wicked as anyone else.
Yep. The woke social justice movement has managed to institutionalize a new set of beliefs and even their own language in virtually every aspect of our society. Many people latch onto these beliefs because they find a community of others doing the same. One of the more positive aspects of growing up in a Christian home was having a sense of belonging and community. Not only that, but my Christian faith gave me a purpose, a grand narrative that inspired and motivated me. Having a sense of purpose and meaning allows us to endure the hardships and tragedies we face in life.
That's true.
Given the decline of traditional religion, there needs to be something else that gives people a narrative and provides purpose and meaning.
And woke
fighting
is
for
religion.
so-called justice and equality is what provides that for huge swaths of people today. Many of these people believe they are on the front lines of a new civil rights movement, even though most of those battles have already been won, and it has never been better in America than the present day.
When you say never been better, some people think you mean, oh, absolutely everything's sorted out, is it? I don't say that, but I say it's very obvious, provable,
Here's
by
the
any
real
fair
comment.
estimation, that the situation in America today on every rights issue is nothing like the situation that was in
I
the
just put the link down
1950s
there
and
for you.
60s. We've come a long way very fast, and people should be very proud of it. But there are people, as I say, who believe that they need to keep struggling. They find meaning in the struggle. They find a purpose in the struggle. And for that struggle to really be engaged in, they need to pretend that our society is institutionally racist, institutionally homophobic,
Ridiculous.
institutionally sexist,
Stupid.
misogynistic, patriarchal.
Total
And that
joke.
therefore we have to fight, as previous generations did.
She's a fucking Nazi. She's a fucking Nazi.
The fact that women
behave
have
like
long been
Nazis.
shut out of dangerous industrial jobs is part of patriarchy. Rape culture is not a myth! Rape culture is not a myth!
In my late teen years, my faith and entire worldview was starting to collapse. I couldn't help but question the morality of the Bible, and I started to doubt whether God was really full of love if he would be willing to send someone to eternal damnation for simply lacking a belief. My struggle with severe depression peaked at 20 years old, which is when I fully lost my faith. I had nothing left to guide me and nowhere to turn. Without a sense of meaning or any reason to go on, I wanted nothing more than to end my own life. My faith was my entire identity, and I lost it all. There were many things that helped me through that time, including my relationship with my sister, therapy, and medication. But having the opportunity to rebuild my identity, create my own sense of meaning, and finding a community were the crucial and sustainable ways that I overcame my depression.
Many people, when they lose faith and find no system to completely replace it with, replace faith with a form of nihilism. My own belief is that we have an awful lot of flares along our path to guide us. And that is everything that we have and have inherited, which give us an idea of what we might do with our lives.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why the total nihilism of the movement that's going on at the moment is so revealing.
Yeah.
If you regard the past, all your predecessors, all of everyone else's predecessors, as merely reprehensible, morally imperfect people who didn't have precisely the views we have in 2020, then no wonder that you're staggering around a beleaguered wasteland wondering what the hell you should do with your life, because you haven't listened to anyone, because you're so presumptuous that you think that all of the obvious answers would have been dropped on you like rain. And I have very little sympathy. I have sympathy, but not much tolerance, you might say, for people who say, I don't know what I'm doing here, and have simultaneously snuffed out every single flare along the path that might have guided them.
Yeah.
We need to know our history and how we got to where we are in order to not repeat the mistakes of the past. We already have the tools we need to build meaningful lives. There are certainly injustices out there that are worth fighting for.
So I don't want to play the whole video. I put the link in there for you guys. Let's keep the show going, because this is about communist China's influence on the United States and the world policing system. And what I'm trying to do is lay a foundation as to how they're doing it. I mean, they basically got a bunch of lemmings in our public school system, in our academic institutions, that are basically parroting everything that happened in communist China before the revolution. For example, Mao Zedong made the women and the men dress the same, made the women cut their hair, so there was no sexual difference between men and women, because that is communism, right? Everyone's equal. Nobody gets more than the other guy, unless, of course, you're a politician, and then your family gets the nice cars, the nice homes, because obviously the high party members have to have nice things, because that's how you support the party, right? Because we have this glorious communist system. And so that's what's going on, guys, right in front of your eyes.
Federal officials are warning that China is working to interfere in November's election. Last month, Meta, the parent company of Facebook, took down what's described as the first targeted Chinese campaign to interfere in the nation's.
Meta itself, in my opinion, is a communist Chinese campaign. To me, this whole thing is a red herring. We know that Meta and all of these left-wing communist social media companies are hardcore lovers, like China-ophiles, right? As long as they get to keep their billions, they'll help the communist Chinese do what they need to do.
Politics. But there are still concerns that Beijing could influence some closely contested races. For more, I want to bring in Rachel Levy. She's the director of geopolitical risk at Active Fence, a technology security company. We hear so much about Russia, but what makes China different in these information operations?
Sure. Hi, Catherine. So China really engages in many different types of malign influence campaigns. They range from decentralized and centralized botnets that consist of thousands of entities and fake accounts that usually don't have a ton of interaction and engagement, all the way to very targeted operations that are run specifically looking to influence a specific target audience that's usually focused more on quality than quantity. We've also seen a lot of campaigns that are engaged in we call active measures, so things that coordinated efforts to brigade, so that's harassing and getting removal, doxing, and hacking campaigns that are targeting dissidents, oppositionists, and related activists and all their activities. And this is really something that's not perceived on the same par as Russia, but China is actually very active in this space, and they're engaged in sophisticated and complex campaigns.
Right. Okay. So to break it down simply, is China more interested in targeting specific candidates who may be promoting policies that are against their interests, or are they more interested in undermining our democratic institutions?
Sure. So the content that we've been seeing related to their activities in relation to the U.S. midterms hasn't really been focused on specific candidates or specific elections. They've been more focused on kind of demoralizing the voter and really trying to polarize and sow discord, which is actually something that we saw very much affiliated with Russia in the past, but this is new activity for China. And these are kind of focusing on things like the democratic nature of the elections, suggesting that the United States is on the brink of civil war, that the U.S. is divided and chaotic, divided among racial lines, and that essentially the two-party system is a joke. They're also focusing on a lot of issues that are very important in the midterms, things like inflation and the economy, and really zeroing in on those hot-button topics to basically denigrate the United States and demoralize the voter.
Based on my reporting, there is a split among some current and former intelligence.
Hold on. I'm going to get you the video link right now, guys. Give me a second.
Officials about how active China was in the last election cycle. And some are arguing that this time around, they feel more emboldened. What are your thoughts?
And it's called Concerns Over China's Efforts
we know,
to Influence
at
U.S.
least from
Elections.
the National Security Council, that there is the assessment that there was, at the very least, voter registration data that was being utilized to try to carry out these malign influence campaigns in the 2020 election. But they've definitely grown more emboldened. I think that's been evident in a lot of the headlines in recent days. Also, we've seen things related to harassment to particular candidates that have specific stances on China. But this is definitely a shift, a paradigm shift in their activity. This is not something we've seen in the past. So it's an indicator that they're taking more interest in this type of activity, and it's a concerning one.
It's less than 2 weeks from the election. What are the red flags that voters ought to be looking for to know when they're seeing an influence operation?
Sure. I think people should always be skeptical and come with a nuanced eye to the information that they're consuming. And I think it's such a broad problem that's plaguing society that we always need to be asking ourselves the question, where did this information originate from? Who's sharing it? Where and how am I consuming it? And people really need to kind of focus on trusted news sources. There's so much misinformation and so much disinformation that's floating around, and it's by design created to try and blend in and try to be deceptive. So it's really important that people have kind of their trusted sources of information and rely on those for what they read and what they ingest, and the information they take in.
Former intelligence official said to me to always be on the lookout for anything that makes you feel real emotional. He said that's often a telltale sign. Rachel Levy, thank you.
All right, so you kind of get the idea. So China's heavily influencing our elections. Then there's this guy. I think this guy's kind of a dickhead, but this is a pretty cool video.
Trust crisis in the world of media, which is because so many in the legacy media have lied in order to preserve left-leaning narratives.
All true.
Just the most recent example,
true.
We were told by the legacy media that President Biden was just fine. For years, anyone who questioned his health and mental fitness was trafficking.
Everyone knew the guy had dementia who had half of a brain cell left in their body.
In cheap fakes. And then President Biden went out and engaged in a full-scale mental collapse on stage in front of hundreds of millions of people. So we can see why Americans, at least Americans who are not Democrats, do not trust the media. The question isn't really why the legacy media have lost Americans' trust. We know that answer. The question is why, despite that loss of trust, the legacy media continue to gain share in the advertising market. And the answer is simple. There is, in fact, an informal pressure system created by Democratic legislators, this White House, legacy media, advertisers, and pseudo-objective brand safety organizations.
All true.
That system guarantees that advertising dollars flow only to left-wing media brands.
That's right.
We're in the midst of a trust crisis in the world of media, which is because so many in the legacy media have lied in order to preserve left-leaning narrative.
So, everything you said is true. So let's get into what the outcome is of all this. See if I got some sound on this bad chicken. So check it out, California. So this is the result of basically teaching people that, hey, you guys are all racist and I'm just going to take what I want. That's it. That is the end result of woke ideology. It's ridiculous. Now, let's get into if I have anything else that I got for you guys. Okay, so now we're going to get into the good stuff. Did they find Jimmy Hoffa? Because this is like a variety show, right? I'm really good stuff. All I need is Ed McMahon, Karnak the Magnificent, Karnak the Great. Let's talk about what the heck is going on, guys. Looks like they found Hoffa.
Without a trace, authorities now indicating they're breaking new ground in the search under a New Jersey bridge. Maura Barrett has that story.
I stand here today before you as I stood in front of that court and took an oath that I was not then guilty, nor am I guilty now.
What would you call the most mysterious case in the world? All that only stands until Jimmy Hoffa's disturbing disappearance comes on.
I didn't know that, Mike.
Since
Thanks for
around
that
the
tidbit.
middle of the last century,
cool.
the name Jimmy Hoffa has been at the center of crime, and there seems to be no good spoken of him.
Only Jimmy Hoffa can rejoice at his continued good luck. Honest union members and the general public can only regard it as a tragedy.
However, things suddenly got worse, and he opened up a huge task for the government after he suddenly disappeared without trace
Shame, Mama
one
Lion.
afternoon in the late 1970s. What could be the motive behind the disappearance of the boss of organized crimes? Was it some form of stunt, or was he in some real trouble this time? Well, these were the questions that led all security officials into the search for Jimmy Hoffa. But things only got worse, and the search for Hoffa became a search for his body after he was declared legally dead 5 years later.
We did not uncover any evidence relevant to the investigation on James Hoffa.
Unfortunately, the search continued without fruit for decades. But guess what? All that is in the past now. Ride into the world of mystery with us as scientists. Finally found the body of Jimmy Hoffa, lost for decades.
Wow. That is
Back
wild.
to the root. If anyone in this century is asked about their knowledge of Jimmy Hoffa, you bet it all starts from his sudden disappearance, or much earlier, his years in prison.
Great movie, by the way.
However,
Nicholson did a good
peep
job.
into Jimmy's mysterious case would only make a lot of sense when we dig into the roots, and we take a tour of where and when it all began. This may sound unbelievable and even ridiculous, but Jimmy's life may have started on the right foot. The moment he was born on the 14th of February, 1913, everyone could have sworn that he had a bright future ahead of him. And if a soothsayer said the same thing to his parents, they would have no reason to doubt that it was true. Especially when he became a union activist who influenced people from a very young age. As a teenager, he got a job with a grocery chain, but the workers were not treated well enough. There was no job security, the wages were bad, and the working condition very poor. All the workers were displeased with the situation of their workplace, and this displeasure became the genesis of a union which Jimmy Hoffa led.
That's right.
The purpose of the union was to seek a change in working conditions and get...
By the way, guys, so when I was studying law in the law study program, I got a job on the 3 to midnight shift at Home Depot. And I had some issues with these freaking brain dead store managers there. And I started the process of forming a union. And all of a sudden, these bigwigs from corporate came down, and I'm in the break room, doing my my PMBR stuff, my law review stuff, getting, studying for the bar exam. And they basically, one of their heads came in the room and sat next to me and tried to be nice, whatever. And I was nice back. And he said, if you form a union, we're just going to close down the store. And that was the Marina Del Rey, I believe, the Marina Del Rey Home Depot. He just flat out told me, we'll just close down the store. And anyways, I ended up, getting a job as a law clerk, file clerk, and left that store. But wow, what an amazing situation. Interesting story, guys, about just so I can, inspiration, right? So this guy, Mitch, who worked at the LA city attorney, who I'd met in a criminal case where I was externing for another lawyer, criminal defense lawyer, saw me at the Home Depot and goes, I know you. And I got my orange vest on and it says Maximus right here with a sword, because I just seen Gladiator. So I just I wanted to be Maximus. And we started talking, and he offered me a volunteer position at the LA city attorney. And so I got a job doing opposing the 1538.5 motions and stuff like that, doing law in motion. And ultimately that led to me putting it on my resume, blah, 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 and got a job making real money, like back then. It was like $15 an hour as a law clerk. And by the time I finished studying and passing the bar exam, I was making between $15,000 to $30,000 a month as a law clerk and doing heavy litigation for a personal injury firm before I was even a lawyer. So if you guys have a shitty job, ancient Chinese proverb, when one door closes, another one opens. But let's get back into Jimmy Hoffa.
The bosses to fix whatever was wrong with the job. However, Jimmy Hoffa was probably the most courageous and approachable in the team. His activism impressed other workers so much that they put him in charge of the union. They didn't even mind that he was still very young at the time. Well, you could say that he was a good choice for the workers, and in some ways, the position was also to prepare him for the days that lie ahead of him. These days started early for him when he left the grocery job in 1932 after he refused to work for an abusive shift foreman. But then, it was as if the Teamsters were anticipating that he quit his job, and immediately he was invited to become an organizer with Local 299 of the Teamsters in Detroit. The labor union Hoffa led had taught him some invaluable things, and this was his time to show them. The Teamsters was only about 30 years old at the time, and they could only boast of 75,000 members all over the country. However, with Jimmy Hoffa's input, the numbers were about to grow exponentially. He started by organizing the trucker groups into regional sections, grew them into a national body.
So look, if you guys like my channel and you like what's going on over here, my traditional, God-fearing, love of country, U.S. Marine Corps mentality, if you like that, double tap my screen and give me a bunch of USAs. Give me a bunch of USAs in the sidebar. OTVOs followed by USAs. And if you hate America, give me a bunch of twos so I know who to kick out of the chat. Let's keep going.
Body, and in just 6 years, he was able to grow the team from barely 100,000 to almost 500,000. The numbers grew even wild in the next 5 years.
USA, baby,
and the union
all the
was
way.
able to top 1 million members in 1951. In case the job of the Teamsters is not clear yet, their role was to organize truck drivers and warehousemen throughout the Midwest. And then they became a force in the entire nation.
Share the video,
Mr. Hoffa, we seem likely during the course of this program to want to discuss at several points the questions of secondary boycotts and of hot cargo. I wonder if right now at the beginning of the show we can agree on a brief definition of those two terms, which is agreeable both to yourself and to the panel. Would you start off?
I don't know if we can agree, but hot cargo in our terminology means material that either came through a picket line or material that is being handled by non-union individuals at a substandard wage.
Through Hoffa's experience in the union thingy, he introduced things like quickie strikes, secondary boycotts, and many other means to strengthen the influence of Teamsters. He was moving from company to company, organizing workers and establishing their influence until the team started winning contract demands from companies. With this, the Teamsters eventually became a force to reckon with, and it rose to being one of the most powerful unions in the United States. In fact, the Teamsters organized as much as 90% of the transportation in the whole United States at the time. I mean, that's some legendary influence courtesy of Jimmy Hoffa.
Thanks, Jeff.
However, he didn't really continue on the right food, and this was probably where he missed it. The step he took in the years following the boom of the Teamsters became a major dot in the mystery of his disappearance and death. Jimmy Hoffa was the superhero of the whole story, until he started getting involved in some dirty things just to maintain the union's influence. For Hoffa to unify and expand trucking unions, he had to form an alliance with many gangster groups all around the Detroit area. So, in the twinkle of an eye, Jimmy Hoffa went from being the superhero of the union to being a villain and the face of organized crime. He even started getting the mafia group involved in his dirty jobs, and of course, that was where he started digging his own grave. However, he probably didn't see the consequences of his actions with these criminal groups. Or maybe he didn't care as long as the alliances boosted the influence of the Teamsters and helped the union grow even more. In 1952, Hoffa worked his way to being selected as the national vice president when he created an internal conflict.
Where they have control of the sheriffs, control of the police, control of the courts, control, if you please, of the entire community life, and the signal for coordinated action of all that's bad is to have an organizer appear in the town, hand out handbills at a non-union plant, call meetings of the workers and talk about increasing their standard of living. And immediately all of the racial hatred stops, and all the labor baiters coordinate their action to destroy a single solitary organizer that comes into that town.
To throw out the guy who was the national president of the union for almost 50 years. He did this in support of the new guy who desired the president position, and in exchange, he was selected by the new leader as his vice president. I guess nothing goes for free, right? Following the new leadership, the union moved its headquarters from Indianapolis to Washington, D.C., where it took over a large office building, 1955. At this time, Hoffa began spending more of his time away from Detroit. He was either in Washington or traveling around the country with his gangster chauffeur, who was appointed to him by one of the crime bosses. Crime boss, imprisoned. A few years after he was appointed as the national vice president of the Teamsters, Hoffa took over the presidency when his former boss was indicted, convicted, and imprisoned for fraud. Well, we can't say that Hoffa wasn't a part of the fraud anyway. His involvement in fraud and corruption only began to show as soon as he took over the president's position. The same year Hoffa became president, the AFL-CIO started making plans to expel the Teamsters and cancel the union because of Hoffa's corrupt leadership. Just imagine how corrupt he must have been for the higher authorities to notice in less than a year after he became president. Hoffa tampered with the union's funds, and a large part of the pension was misused by him. In fact, he pumped a large sum of money into funding the mafia groups, since they have been a major part of the union from the scratch. However, the AFL-CIO was not able to...
So the unions really couldn't function without the mafia's help, at least back then. And like, for example, the docks. A lot of you guys may not know this, but in World War II, the mafia worked with the U.S. government to look for German spies and stuff on the docks, because I know there was at least one incident where a ship blew up or something, and they blamed that on German spies. So, you know, the unions apparently helped the government, the mafia helped the unions, and so on. And just interesting how when law enforcement does something bad, nothing happens to them, right? They get a slap on the hand most of the time. But a guy like Hoffa, who's basically a tool for the government and the mafia, disappears.
To oust the Teamsters, and Hoffa probably relaxed and concluded that nothing could go wrong until an in-house war against him began. At the time he was re-elected as the union president, Jimmy Hoffa already had the government on his tail, and his name had been in court for several cases like jury tampering and mail fraud.
That's probably true, Jeff.
For this reason, union delegates in Miami Beach selected a guy named Frank Fitzsimmons as the vice president. They made arrangements for the new guy to become the union president if Hoffa eventually ended up in jail. Well, they weren't wrong, because the next few years were extremely turbulent for Jimmy Hoffa.
Saw fit to elect a man who had been tagged, mind you, as a communist, who disavowed the fact that he was a communist, and no proof was presented under our Constitution of the International Union.
He was charged to court several times, but he managed to scale through a lot of those charges. In 1961, he became so notorious that the Office of the Attorney General had to launch a special squad, which he named Get Hoffa. In May 1963, 2 years after the team Get Hoffa started work, Hoffa was indicted for jury tampering, and he was charged with attempted bribery when he tried to bribe the grand juror. He was convicted on March 4, 1964, and sentenced to 8 years in prison. But that was not all. He was convicted in a second trial on July 26, 1964. This time, he had to serve for an additional 5 years for conspiracy, mail and wire fraud, and improper use of the Teamsters Pension Fund. So, this means that he had to spend the next 13 years in prison. For someone like Hoffa, trust him never to leave any stones unturned. So, right behind bars, he even made arrangements to run the union through the acting president, Frank Fitzsimmons. Good for him, he succeeded for a while because Fitzsimmons was one of his loyalists. He was a longtime member of Teamsters Local 299, who also lived in Detroit.
And that's the thing, like all these guys knew where the bodies were buried, and that's how it is with these corrupt politicians, the guys who go to like Bohemian Grove, right, and the Red Shoe Club. They get these guys dirty, like those guys at Epstein Island. I guarantee you, probably half our Congress, FBI, CIA, Mossad, they're all over there balling little kids, right? They all know where the bodies are buried, but they control the government, the trappings of power, and they all have dirt on each other, and that's probably what's going on here.
And he owed his current high position to Jimmy Hoffa's influence. However, things soon became fishy as Fitzsimmons started to pull away from Hoffa's influence and control. And of course, this did not sit well with Hoffa. But Fitzsimmons didn't really care. He decentralized power, and he chose to forego the control Hoffa took advantage of as union president. With all of that going on, Hoffa had no choice but to resign from the president's position while in prison, and Fitzsimmons was elected as the new president. Few years after Fitzsimmons became president, and barely 5 years into his years, Hoffa was released from prison by the U.S. president, Richard Nixon. But on one condition: after Hoffa's release, he would not be able to get involved in anything that concerned the leadership of the union.
Kurt.
Well, maybe he had nothing to lose, since he was awarded a huge sum of $1.75 million as a termination benefit.
Not bad. So guys, really quick, little intermission. So look, I know I'm not getting a lot of, super chats or coffees or whatever. That's fine. But if you want to support my channel and make it easier for me to justify spending all this time with you to my wife, get a digital version of my book on how to become a lawyer with no law degree or undergrad. This is the soft cover that I have not finished yet. I mean, I don't have this available for sale yet because it's just too damned expensive. But it's my journey in becoming a practicing lawyer with no law degree or undergrad. And it just talks about my journey on the California State Bar Law Office Study Program and, my upbringing and how I ended up doing it and how I was able to find lawyers and just using my background in sales and in construction, really, to use that mentality, the Marine Corps mentality, do or die, to become an attorney. And I think it'd be a really good read for you, even if you don't read it yourself. Buy a copy of it for a friend or family member. If you go to my YouTube channel, in fact, I'll just share with you really quick. You go to my YouTube channel, to the very home page. Go right there. Let me make sure you're seeing it. Okay. So under the About section, if you just scroll down there, you'll see you can get my book for $19.99. There's a link. You just go to PayPal, drop it in. It's a great book, and you can support my channel that way. And you don't have to pay a super chat and share it with these commies that run this channel, right? You can just support my family that way. And it motivates me to, be able to spend more time with you, because I like doing long shows. But I'll be honest with you, if I worked on a case file, I would be able to make a lot of money. So this is really a labor of love. It's very difficult for me to spend all this time with my caseload that I do have. So if you guys, I would appreciate it if you could help support my channel in any way, shape, or form, including volunteers. I need volunteers to help me with a project that I'm trying to work on with BZ Watchdog. And so if you are a coder, like if you know HTML or JavaScript, and you want to volunteer some time to help us with our project, I'd really appreciate it. I'm all about, less government is more freedom, and government accountability operations, as well as obviously the Second Amendment is probably the biggest thing besides the first for me. And so I just wanted, to share that with you guys. Let's get back into Hoffa. Did they actually find his body? I want to find out.
After his resignation from the position of the Union president. But that was little sum when compared to the benefits he had usurped and could still have access to if he remained in office. Also, it was unlikely the power-hungry Jimmy Hoffa would just take his eyes off the leadership of the Union just because it was a prize for freedom. So, Hoffa started acting funny a few months after his release. First, he accused the Attorney General and White House Special Counsel.
So Kinetic, just really quick, Kinetic Custom says, I'd love to go on that program, but not in California. And I'm with you, dude. There are other states that I mention in my book that do have similar programs. So it's worth the read, dude. I mean, honestly, it took me years to write the damn thing. I could sell it for $100, but the idea is I want people to buy it and read it.
Of imposing the condition on him because the labor leaders requested that they did so. In fact, Hoffa went as far as suing to have the restriction removed so that he could regain his power over the Union. However,
so really quick, I have a question here from Jilly V. She's asking, do I have a Cash App or other apps like it so she could send me money now? And look, you don't worry about it. I'm just saying, if you can support me, fine. You can support the channel, that's fine. Because honestly, it's just covering not even close to the time that I spend to share my knowledge and have some fun with you guys. But as far as the Cash Apps, the only thing that I have right now is PayPal. And that's why, look, guys, I'm not the most technical dude, all right? I'm getting up there in age, and, I'm a coder. I know how to do JavaScript and web design, but as far as all these different Cash Apps and how to integrate them, I don't know how to do any of that. So if anybody can help me, some of you young bucks or young ladies who know some of this stuff, I really could use the help. I just don't know how to do it all. I don't even know how to set up a GoFundMe. I mean, I had somebody else do that for me once, and I still can't figure out how to get my money out of I got like $500 that someone donated to my charity that I set up after my father died from Agent Orange related cancer from being a Marine in Vietnam. And I still can't get the money out to put it in the nonprofit. It's been in there for years. But if you guys, can help me, if anybody can volunteer some time to help me build the channel and get this message out of sovereignty and freedom, man, my ears are wide open. All right, let's keep going.
He lost his court battle, and the court ruled that the U.S. president had the right to impose a restriction, especially when Hoffa engaged in a lot of atrocities while he was the Union president. Nevertheless, Hoffa still tried his best to regain his power and influence in the Union. When his attempt to take over the presidency failed, he tried to start over from the grassroots, but the plan failed as well. And that was when he remembered his mafia friends. He tried to use the mafia guys as he always did, but unfortunately, things didn't really work out as they did before. And he met with huge opposition from the mafia as well. His major enemy was Anthony Provenzano, went from being the capo regime of the crime family to bring a Teamsters local leader in New Jersey and a national vice president of the Union with Hoffa's help. You would wonder how things got sour between them, right? Provenzano became Hoffa's enemy after they reportedly had a disagreement at the federal prison in the 1960s. In fact, things got really bad, and he threatened to pull out Hoffa's guts when he asked for help to regain his former position in the Union. Apparently, Provenzano's words might not have been empty threats, as he eventually became a prime suspect in Jimmy Hoffa's case. The search. As the
Hold on, I'm trying to get you guys the link. Somebody asked for the link to this video. So
investigation began,
Give me 1 second.
Giacalone and Provenzan denied that they scheduled a
Yeah,
meeting.
I'm glad you
with
guys
Hoffa
like the
that
same
day.
stuff that I like. Hoffa's
Truly,
a great story.
there was no evidence that they were anywhere around the restaurant that afternoon, but the fact is that they could have perpetrated the crime without getting to the location. In fact, the FBI suspected this when Provenzano's testimonies didn't seem to match. He said that he was seen fraternizing with local union members in Hoboken, and later told investigators that he was playing cards with Stephen Andretta in Union City, New Jersey. Also, The mafia's involvement became obvious when the investigators found that none of their members were willing to talk about Hoffa's disappearance. However, all fingers still pointed at the mafia, especially Provenzano, when new evidence started showing up. In December of the same year Hoffa disappeared, a federal investigator in Detroit testified in court that a witness had...
That's pretty cool. So Kinetic Customs is saying that spoke different languages before he graduated high school and also taught Spanish for 2 years. Hey, that's pretty dope, dude. That's impressive. I'm more impressed with self-educated people. I think that modern academic institutions brainwash people into hating their country, into hating their forefathers, because they're run by people who have basically been paid off by our communist Chinese enemies. And prior to that, the KGB. I mean, the KGB had totally infiltrated our education system. Let's keep going.
Had identified 3 New Jersey men who allegedly participated in the abduction and murder of James R. Hoffa. The 3 men, named Thomas Andretta, Salvatore Briguglio, and his brother Gabriel Briguglio, had some affiliations with the mafia, and they were even close associates with Provenzano. Now, when you think about the fact that a witness claimed to see Jimmy Hoffa at the back of a maroon car with 3 men, then I guess it all makes sense. Speaking of the car, the investigators found out that it was a maroon 1975 Mercury Marquis Brougham, which belonged to Anthony Giacaloni's son, Joseph. And it gets mind-boggling, because he claimed the car was borrowed earlier that day by Charles O'Brien, Hoffa's foster son, to deliver fish. Though O'Brien was Hoffa's relation, they didn't have a good relationship because O'Brien believed that Hoffa could have given him a better position when he was the Union president. So, would it make sense if he had a connection to Hoffa's disappearance? I guess.
Yeah.
And this proved true when police dogs identified Hoffa's scent in the car.
Wow.
Also,
wow,
they found streaks of blood inside the car, but Hoffa claimed it was from the salmon fish he delivered that day. Fast forward to 2001, the FBI matched DNA from Hoffa's hair, taken from a brush, with a strand of hair found in the car. So it became quite obvious that Provenzano, the 3 men, O'Brien, and the car were dots that needed to be connected in the case. Theories.
Yeah, borrow my car.
Years later, the Detroit Free Press published what they called the Hofex Memo, a 56-page report prepared by the FBI for a January 1976 briefing on the case at the FBI headquarters in Washington. Although it did not claim conclusively to establish the specifics of his disappearance, the memo records a belief that Hoffa was murdered by some organized crime figures because of his efforts to regain power in the Teamsters. The Hofex memo concluded, based on evidence that O'Brien was driving Joseph Giacaloni's maroon 1975 Mercury on the day of the disappearance, and that Hoffa was seated in the right rear seat of the car. A pump-action 12-gauge shotgun was seized from the trunk of the car, and numerous bullets were found in the glove compartment as well. Later on, an author named Arthur A. Sloan said that the most common theory of FBI investigators was that Russell Bufalino was the mob boss who ordered the murder, and the 3 guys who were at the back of the car were just sent to carry out the work. If you're wondering what Charles O'Brien's role was, it's been theorized that he was used as a dupe to lure Hoffa away. Because Hoffa was suspicious of Provenzano, he would probably not have entered the car unless there was a familiar figure present, since O'Brien had some hidden resentments for Hoffa. He was that perfect familiar bait. So, according to the theory, O'Brien picked Hoffa up from the Marcus Red Fox parking lot, and Hoffa was either killed in the car or driven to an unspecified location to be killed. However, those were speculations, as the blood found in the car did not match Hoffa's DNA. Therefore, the location of the murder remains unknown, and it wasn't likely that it happened at the restaurant or anywhere around. I mean, any fishy movement in the restaurant or around the parking lot would have easily attracted a crowd, right? So, the Hofex memo was probably true, and Hoffa was lured away to a different murder location. This lack of specificity about the right location is probably the major reason scientists have had major problems with finding his body. Or maybe the body just didn't exist. Hoffa's body found? Most people who knew about the Jimmy Hoffa case have concluded that he may never be found because his body was probably cremated after he was murdered. The author named Arthur Sloan listed a local waste incinerator and a landfill in Jersey City as the possible locations where the body was taken. And many other researchers seem to go with this narrative. In fact, another researcher listed 2 waste incinerators and a crematorium in the Detroit area, and he was somehow sure that the body was cremated in one of those places. I mean, it probably doesn't make sense that the body was transported to a long distance.
Yeah.
The Hoffex memo seems to agree with this point of view, and the FBI said that if the mafia guys in Detroit were the tools used in his planned disappearance, then it is partly impossible that the body would be transported back to New Jersey. The FBI believed that the Detroit organized crime, people have proven over time that they are capable of taking care of things like that, without any trace.
Yeah.
However, regardless of the fact that the cremation seems to be widely accepted, many people still believe that the body could be buried somewhere, and search has continued over decades for the possible location of the body. In one of such occasions, the Michigan Attorney General went to Waterford Township to supervise an expedition to locate and exhume Hoffa's remains. They had received a tip from an unnamed informer who said a group of mafiosi were trying to dig out Hoffa's body, but unfortunately, after a long time of digging, the expedition proved unsuccessful. Up until now, digs are still being conducted periodically in Detroit and other areas around it, but none of those expeditions have given a clue of where Hoffa's body might be.
Oh, man.
Don't get it twisted, guys. A lot of bodies have been found. However, none of them just seem to match what they are looking for. This means that the name Jimmy Hoffa is still very much surrounded in mystery, and until the body is found, no one would ever know the real truth about the case.
That's true.
Well, except the real masterminds of whatever happened to him.
Yeah.
Outro. All right. This is where we would hit the brakes on the journey into the world of mysteries. Hope you enjoyed this video. What do you think?
It was kind of cool. I don't know. I just wanted to let you guys kind of check it out. I have varied interests, you know, one of those kind of people, just varied interests. I get kind of burned out on just watching cop watch videos all the time. So forgive me, guys. I'm kind of a dynamic personality. So I've got another cool video I want to share with you guys. This is one of my like online wish that he was my friend. Zoe's the Ghost. The guy's cool as hell.
You haven't heard Tyreek Hill, who is a megastar for the Miami Dolphins, was arrested right before the game. It turns out that this cop is a member of the Gunfighters Motorcycle Club. I've seen them before in passing. Now, when you mess with these NFL players, you're messing with a billionaire's money, and you know they're the ones with the real power. Let's get into it. So let's check this out from the Miami New Times. Cop who cuffed Tyreek Hill is a motorcycle club member and a DJ. The Miami-Dade police officer who hauled Miami Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill out of his sports car and took him face down to the pavement on Sunday morning has been identified as Danny Torres. In body cam footage, the Miami-Dade...
So you guys, here's the deal, okay? I just want you guys to understand something. Here's the deal. Police officers are really looked down upon by the MC community, especially the 1%ers. But we've seen this sort of thing, I don't know, this weird thing happen with cops. Now they like to get tattoos and be bikers, and it's almost like they want to be like the criminals that they're trying to enforce laws against. It's just an interesting thing that the Gunfighter Motorcycle Club, like the Hells Angels or the Banditos, would absolutely just look down on these guys like they're the lowest form of human on the planet. But let's just keep watching.
Police Department released late on Monday Taurus is recognizable as the tattooed officer wearing long black compression sleeves beneath his short sleeve uniform shirt. On Tuesday, the MDPD identified Taurus as a 20.
Well, hold on a minute. Just so you know, cops are 5150. I didn't know. I saw the video and I was like, I want to watch this video. And I figured that some of you guys might want to too, but it kind of like was misleading, like they found his body or could have found his body. Obviously they didn't, but we learned, and it was kind of cool to learn the story of Jimmy Hoffa or get a refresher course. Now let's watch more of these crazy guys that messed with Tyreek Hill.
27-year veteran of the department. The officer was placed on administrative leave while the internal investigation unfolds. They say he's in the Gunfighters Motorcycle Club and he's a DJ on the side. A review of Torres' internet presence includes his personal Facebook page, reveals that the veteran motorcycle cop is an avid biker and DJs on the side under the name DJ Dino. Photos from Toro's Threads account indicate that he worked as a DJ for the police department. Though Taurus revised his Facebook profile, even as this post went live, it remains filled with photos of Taurus and the motorcycles, many of them in connection with the Florida chapter of a group called the Gunfighters Motorcycle Club. In one photo shot in black and white, Taurus wears a leather vest with patches identifying him as Peacemaker, Dano, and President. On its website, Gunfighter states that it was established on December 10th, 2005, and describes the club as a national and international law enforcement motorcycle club. They say their membership consists of active and retired law enforcement officers who are in good standing with their respective agencies and or retired honorably. It says we abide by the laws set forth by the United States Constitution and the laws of our international chapters in which we reside. We are not one percenters, nor are we a territorial organization. We wear our bottom rockers to signify the state and county we call home. Now let's check out this clip with him arresting Tyreek Hill.
Great video, by the way. I'm going to share this link. I'm going to share this link for you guys. I want you guys to check out Zos the Ghost. I really like bikers, man. They remind me of Marines. They're all about freedom, liberty, and being left the F alone, right? Really amazing. I don't know if I like the music too much, but who's going to be playing that? I'm just going to turn the music off because we don't need to get a strike. So we're just going to watch I'll try to narrate for you. So Tyreek gets pulled over. Apparently he's breaking the speed limit, going like 50 miles or something over the speed limit. And they just pull him out of the car and start beating the shit out of him, I guess. Let's listen to see if they're still. So he doesn't really narrate this, unfortunately. Now, one of the stories that I heard is that he was going 100 miles an hour in a construction zone, and that pissed off these cops. And of course, in typical NFL fashion, he got an attitude with these guys, and naturally they wanted to hurt him because that's what cops do, right? At least a lot of cops do that. Let me get this link here for you. There it is. So there's the link to the video. And you can see, what's up, BZ? So let's go ahead. Let me stop it right here so we can just get to where he's narrating. And let's get the sound back on for all you bad chickens out there.
Administrative leave. I think this
right there. You can see they've got him pinned. They got the old like 50s.
So this cop got put on administrative leave. I think this whole thing is out of line. Tyreek Hill committed no crime. Speeding, I guess, if you want to call that a crime. Why do they have to put him on the floor? He was on the phone calling his people, not resisting. This is why I'm not a back the blue guy. I don't care what nobody says. Give him his ticket and let him go.
Agreed.
Why are they all surrounding the car, making a big spectacle out of him? I bet you Stephen Ross, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, is going to have his back. What do you think about this? That billionaire, all the money he's bringing to that town, there's no way this is just going to go like this and it's going to be nothing. That dude is probably going to lose his job. They say allegedly he was stopped for speeding as he and others were arriving for the Dolphins season opener against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So he messed it up for the fans and all that. As the incident unfolded, body cam footage and bystander videos show Torres. Still, you can see it in the cop's face. He does not care. He still throws him to the ground. It's like, come on, man. He's not doing anything wrong. He's standing there and you throwing him to the ground after he told you this. Like, I don't get it, man. So Torres responds to him. Did you have surgery in your ears when we told you to put the window down? Flexing, you know what I mean? That's what they do. Not everybody, but that's what a lot of them do. When one of Hill's teammates, Dolphins defensive lineman Calais Campbell, arrived at the scene, Torres shouted at him as well and later placed him in handcuffs. Obviously, he's one of the players on his team. He has the right to watch what they're doing.
That's right.
Like, who are they to tell him that he has to leave? Following the release of the body cam footage, the Dolphins released a statement to the police department, and they said they want strong action taken against the officers who engaged in such despicable behavior.
Terrible.
We are saddened by the overly aggressive and violent conduct directed towards Tyreek Hill, Calais Campbell, and Jonna Smith by police officers before yesterday's game. And the statement read, "It is both maddening and heartbreaking to watch the very people we trust protect our community use such unnecessary force and hostility towards these players. Yet it is also a reminder that not every situation like this ends in peace, as we are grateful this one did." So you know, a letter from a billionaire, that's going to hold a lot of water and people are going to feel it. This is going to be a big situation. This is the stuff that people get upset about cops being in clubs, because then now this is another situation where motorcycle clubs look bad. But, you know, he wasn't riding with his club at this time when he's doing it. But, you know, this makes the club look bad. I don't know how that club views this, if he's going to have heat with them. Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to hit that like button and that subscribe button. And if you want to support the row, get your Demons Row hats now or your shades. They're on www.demonsrow.com. I got another.
So, guys, give me a bunch of ones for Zos the Ghost. He used to be a 1% motorcycle club dude. I think he was a president, actually, of an MC. I'm not totally sure, so don't hate on me for not knowing. But I just think that a lot of the stuff that he says is right on. So I've got one more video. I got one more video that I want to show you guys about whether or not Haitians are eating Haitian migrants. It's 15 minutes. Do you guys want me to close the show down, or do you want to watch this video? It's 15 minutes. Let me know. Give me a bunch of ones if you want me to watch the video with you and do some narration. Hey, BZ, good seeing you, brother. And so give me a bunch of ones if you want. Okay, Jilly V wants to watch it. It's really hard to find anything about the Haitians eating ducks because Google and YouTube, they're all about flooding our country with illegals, according to many of the stories that I've heard. They're all about this globalist one world government. So what a better way to destroy the country and usher in a new one world communist government than to have this happen. Here we go.
There's a couple of weird things that happen in certain cultures around the world, right? I mean, everyone has their own belief system overall, and it is what it is. But then some individuals, like, let's say, sacrificing animals, okay, for, I don't know, juju. Let's call it that, guys, right? And the reason why I know this in so much detail is because I had one time dealt with a woman many, many years ago, like decades ago, guys, right? She was Haitian. And she definitely believed in voodoo.
You're funny. What's the matter with you?
That was why it didn't work, okay? She liked to cook everything with, like, red sauce. And if you guys know, you know.
Just really quick. So somebody keeps asking me, is Chile still in jail? And I keep on trying to tell you guys, Chile will always be in jail until he's governor and he starts being able to enact legislation to hold government officials accountable. So, when I say free Chile de Castro, what I'm really saying is he's never going to be free. He will always have the jackboot on his neck until you guys help him get into a position of power to where he can actually make change. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree, because I do. I've always supported his mission in government accountability. I know a lot of people hate me for that. I've actually lost a couple of friends who are so angry that I would support this guy because they don't like his attitude or the way he behaves. But guess what, guys? Holding the government accountable means sometimes you get to be a dick to see if they're going to do something wrong. Anyways, let's see what this Haitian dog eater thing or cat eater thing's all about.
All right. Okay, careful of the red sauce, specifically from certain regions, because some women like spreading their monthly inside the sauce.
No problem, Jason. I got you,
All
brother.
right, to make sure they
Bunch of
keep
people
that,
ask me
man.
that though.
All right, that's an oddity. that's an absolute oddity. Careful of the red sauce, guys. Okay, that's just what I'm going to go ahead and point out, specifically when it comes to like the concept of like sacrificing animals and voodoo and all of that stuff, guys. But apparently, there's some craziness going on in Ohio. They're sick of it. Apparently, that is where the overwhelming majority of Kamala's Haitian migrants went. But all right, and apparently they're just going into parks and just like, oh, that's a duck. Let me get that.
Ripping their heads off and
Right.
taking them.
So that's the thing. But guys, we're here, guys. Name of the video is Haitian migrants accused of eating park ducks. Say suggestion via Discord. All right. I'm just mentally preparing myself for what is to come here, guys. But let's go ahead and check this out immediately.
I'm done with what I'm seeing. It is so unsafe in my neighborhood anymore. I have the homeless that were trying to camp out, and I have made concessions with them, and I try to help them the best I can to keep them from trying to squat on my property. But it is so unsafe. I have men that cannot speak English in my front yard screaming at me, throwing mattresses in my front yard, throwing trash in my front yard. And I can't. Look at me. I weigh 95 pounds. I couldn't defend myself if I
No, you can't.
had to. My husband is elderly. And last night, after living in this home for 45 years, he said, Noelle, guess what? It's time to pack up and move.
Right.
He said, we can't do this anymore. He said, it's killing both of us mentally.
Yeah.
I don't understand what you expect of us as citizens.
Bro, I'm sure the property value went down all the way to the ground because if that property comes up for sale. All right. If it comes up for sale, people are going to hit that street view. They're going to say, oh, this is nice. Realize that was taken 4 years ago. Then when they go to actually tour the house, they're going to see what the neighborhood has turned out to be. And then they're going to be like, yeah, no chance. I'm not buying here. This is a bad investment, right? All that's going to happen in your area specifically is property demise.
I mean, I understand they're here under temporary protected status and you're protecting them. And I understand that our city services are overwhelmed and understaffed. But who's protecting us? If we're protecting them, who's protecting me?
No one.
I want out of this town. I am sorry. Please give me a reason to stay.
You guys are they have no reason for you to stay other than your tax dollars that they're going to then move over to people that will actually most likely support them in the polls eventually, potentially, guys, right? Specifically that country, yeah, most likely. And that's what's happening here, guys.
Sitting up there and something. Like I really challenge you guys to get out here and do something. These Haitians are running into trash cans. They're running into buildings. They're running into they flipping cars in the middle of the street.
Yep. Right.
And I don't know how like y'all can be comfortable with this. Like I don't know like who's getting paid from it. I feel like
follow the money.
I honestly feel like someone's getting paid.
So one thing I got to point something out to you guys. This guy right here, he's a real American. He loves his country, and he also happens to be black. But guess what? Haitians are black too. When I talk about Haitians, I'm immediately being accused of being racist. When I show a video showing them taking ducks out of ponds and putting them in bags right here in the United States, in Ohio, and then we're being told by ABC and all these communist-run news stations that it's not happening, that it's all fake. This guy right here, he's not a racist. He's an American, and he's telling us what's going on. Let's listen to him.
From it in the background, you got a bunch of people on a bus getting dropped off at a gas station to come down here. I know a single mom that FaceTimed me this morning at the welfare office that really need something. And it's nothing but immigrants over there. They're in the park grabbing up ducks by their neck and cutting their head off and walking off with them and eating them and it's going to get bigger and it's only going to get worse. And y'all sitting up there.
Now we're being told by Camel Toe Harris and this Waltz character that none of this is happening. Don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe your lying eyes. These guys are such scumbags. I can't even get over it. Listen to what this guy has to say. He's an eyewitness.
there in these chairs. All y'all need to get out here and do something. Y'all making hundreds of thousands of dollars. Y'all need to put on a t-shirt and some Crocs, and then y'all need to come out here in these streets, and y'all need to go out here and I'm out here before the police is.
Right. Like, they're not coming out there at all. They're comfortable where they are. Why would they? Right? They're getting paid, obviously, in proximity to what's actually happening. Right? Your best bet is to just completely leave. And then when they realize that your entire area is now full of, migrants.
By the way, guys, when I had $1 million home in Redondo Beach, and there were homeless people and illegal aliens shitting on my front lawn and digging through my trash cans, that's when we decided to leave Communist Fornia for good. So he's right. He's absolutely right. I have to commute now whenever I go to trial or have a hearing, but I do it because I want to protect my wife and kids. Let's keep going.
Come, illicitly through the border, guys, right? You'll start to realize instantly one thing: no one is there to pay your taxes anymore. So if you can leave, I guess leave, but hopefully you don't specifically own there.
Y'all need to do something, bro. Y'all really got to stand on business. Y'all getting paid all this money just to wear a suit and sit in a chair. I think it's crazy, bro. That's where they come from, and that's what they do. That's their country. I don't know what they got going on over there, but they can't do that over here. And if y'all just getting paid from it and then y'all ain't doing nothing about it, I think that's super weird, bro. Y'all got to stand on business. Y'all got to really,
shit. That's why.
It's lame, bro. But the thing is, guys, if you actually have been to the country of Haiti or you've seen anything regarding Haiti, you'll start to realize that not all of Haiti, keep this in mind here.
It's the poorest country on the planet, and the average IQ in Haiti, based upon the research I've done, is between 60 and 70. The lowest IQs in America are found in California. I think they're around 70 to 80. But Haiti even beats California. Here we go.
Like the places that are actually secured with high fences and armed guards at the front, those are good generally. But the rest of it, bro, no, guys. No.
Anti-snow.
Now, keep in mind, I may be biased, because my
Michelle,
lineage
you're
comes from the country that
anti-snow
borders it, and that could be, influencing my overall negative opinion of that specific country, guys. Right? But I'm letting you guys know what he's explaining is basically what Haiti looks like on the inside of it.
Yeah, it's a piece of shit country.
Like, for real.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Driving around Springfield, I was looking at the giant holes in some of our buildings. I noticed all of the old familiar.
And by the way, these idiots like the city managers and stuff, they're so terrified of losing their job, they'll literally lie to ABC News and say, "Oh, we haven't found any credible stories. We haven't found anything credible." And then the fact checker will then say, "Well, the former president clearly lied." No, that's not what these idiots in government are saying. They're just saying, we've heard plenty of stories, but we don't want to believe them. We don't want to believe what the public and what people like her are telling us. That's how corrupt these local city councils and school boards have become. Give me a bunch of ones if you want to change the system. And I'll tell you right now, the best way to change the system, guys, is to form parallel systems the same way that Martin Luther King did. Martin Luther King Jr. formed parallel systems, and he opted out of all this garbage. When those shopkeepers were discriminating against black people, he boycotted them. Why aren't we boycotting Target? Why aren't we boycotting BlackRock-owned companies and forming parallel systems? We have this incredible sidebar chat. All you people should be subscribing to each other. You should be becoming friends. You should be exchanging information, and you should be getting me your contact information so I can put you on my website as a patriot-friendly business or patriot-friendly person. So I know who to do business with, and you know who to do business with.
Spots bearing new signs in an unfamiliar language.
Okay.
I watched as groups of strangers walked around the city like lost tourists, and it was like a punch in the gut. A terrible sadness came over me, and I began to cry. I immediately started to think back to when I was little, walking from my grandma's house on South Fountain through downtown and all the way to Snyder Park. I feel like we have been invaded by some sort of pest.
Absolutely.
I'm angry that my friends and family are packing up and moving away.
It's true.
I'm angry that foreigners are using up the resources that were set up for the Americans that reside here. I'm angry that another country's flag was being flown in our city. I'm angry when I see our businesses and recreational areas littered with garbage left by people that do not know or understand our laws and culture and are making no attempt to learn about them.
They refuse to assimilate.
And let me be clear, this is not about race. This is about people being given the privilege of coming here from another country.
But these woke people will immediately accuse her of being racist. Anything that the left disagrees with, they just call you a racist, bigot, and homophobe. This lady's talking about her life and safety and freedom. She's not a racist. But most people in this country got rid of the whole idea of racial superiority a long time ago. I was in the Marine Corps. Some of the best people I ever served alongside and the toughest guys I ever served with were black dudes. I could give an F about what race you are. What do you think? What is your character like? Martin Luther King Jr. said, judge people not based on the content, not based on their race or the color of their skin, but on the content of their character. And, you know, so I just don't buy into all this BS that's being pushed by these lefty commies.
And having no respect for our people, our land, or our life's work.
Bro, I'm gonna be honest. I feel exactly the same at certain points of what you said here. Like every time I see like an Irish flag in front of someone's house, I'm like, "You're American. You're in America." It's like I'm like, "Oh, it's weird." Right. Like I don't know, you know, going to other places where you see like the Italian flag. Also, it's like we're in America. Relax, right? This flag behind me, okay, America. Guys, come on.
People living their life here the way they did in Haiti, angry, stealing, polluting, living in filth, and acting like animals. These are not civilized people. Opening containers in our grocery stores, helping themselves to what's inside, and throwing the rest.
Okay, wait a second. All right, listen, I like the no holds barred nature of her words at least, guys, but words are powerful, let's say.
Yeah.
Now, are they civilized? Listen, just be fully aware here.
He's a backwater.
Culture is different around the world. Now, if you come from a culture that is somewhat lawless at times, then yeah, in the standard of like Western.
In Haiti, cannibalism is normal. Eating cats and dogs is part of the voodoo lifestyle. So I like this guy and I understand where he's coming from, but what she's saying is how she feels. And to her, people should not be allowed into this country unless they abide by our laws. When in Rome, do as Romans do. Give me a bunch of ones if you think that that should be normal. Would you let somebody into your house that was taking a shit on your front lawn and stealing your neighbor's cat and putting it in a barbecue? Then why are you letting him into our country? Think about that.
Civilization, if we're going to put that as the metric, then yeah, no. I get what you're saying completely. I'm just saying like the wording is a little.
Pressed onto the shelves and floors, pulling off of the highway to publicly clean and gut the roadkill, lying.
Hey, Chad, that's the best IQ you could ever have. Give me a bunch of ones. Chad Crumb's got a 69 IQ. I mean, as a man and a former construction worker, I think that's probably the best number you could ever get.
There in front of anyone that passes by, stealing animals from farmers and leaving their severed heads at the side of an old school where children play. Relieving themselves in public, making some barbaric stew out of the birds that live in our park. This is insanity, and it has to stop.
Barbaric.
What will become of Springfield? Where will we be in 5 years? The thought terrifies me.
There have been firsthand reports of wrong-way drivers on one-way streets, drivers ignoring stop signs, and red lights and other traffic issues. There is the impact on businesses having to deal with language, cultural differences. There is a strain on public resources, both governmental and private services, including health.
I'm taking my cart down the grocery aisle, and I have 3 immigrants strapped across the aisle. Seen me coming, would not budge, wouldn't even, and I said, excuse me.
It's the culture. They don't understand the
Maybe
culture.
they didn't understand what I was saying.
No, they just didn't care, right? They were like, why is this woman talking to me? I'm telling you that's what happened. That's exactly what happened. Again, culture.
I'm sure they understood that I was trying to get through that aisle.
And that's kind of the problem.
So I have no recourse now but to bust through it. I'm not afraid to do so. I would like to see.
Because most likely that would have been normal in that instance in their country.
See them have some common respect.
Why are they letting him into our country?
Some common decency.
Okay.
Do not try to bully your way through Springfield, Ohio. It's not going to work out well.
Now, let me ask you guys a question. Are there any of you people with children who would ever want your children exposed to this? I mean, I noticed this theme among the woke. None of them have kids. None of them have husbands, usually. And a lot of people call them cat ladies if they're women. You'd think that they would stand up for cats, right?
Having thousands of new immigrant neighbors move into our city during the past few years has been stressful and overwhelming, but I am hopeful for a shared future with them.
Yeah, sure.
Speaking from personal experience, our Haitian neighbors and other newcomers I have met have been kind, grateful, hardworking people.
Sounds like a Jim
who want
Jones
to play a positive
member.
role in our community. They are students, employees, business owners, and consumers who are contributing to our city.
It reminds me of a public school teacher.
I mean, here's the thing, guys. When it comes to like brand new cultures, because
I agree, Joy
populating an area, there is a benefit to that, right? There is a benefit in understanding that your worldview may not be the only worldview. That's a great thing. End of the day, right?
Cool.
But I think because these cultures, like American culture and Haitian culture, specifically the ones who have fled, right, and from the region where they fled from, it is very different.
Very,
very, very different. And I'm not even sure that the individuals that fled knew how actually different things actually were, guys. I'm not even sure. And that's a super interesting thing. Now, how is it that how can we, for example, find a way to merge cultures, right? Obviously, if you've been there, you don't really have to
That's not a difficult question to answer. We have a legal immigration system, or at least we used to until Biden destroyed the southern border. But we have a legal immigration system where people assimilate. They're forced to learn American history, right? They're forced to learn about our culture and our Bill of Rights and our Constitution. They're not just invited in and given free money from the government, free phones, free hotels, so one party can change the electoral college with the census. No, that's not what this country was about. Give me a bunch of ones if you think it's high treason to flood the country with illegal aliens just so you can hold on to political power, which is what most people who are critical thinkers know is happening.
Technically do much, right? The ones who just recently came should be at least looking to kind of acclimate to the ongoing culture that actually surrounds it, right? Yeah. But I don't know about the ducks, guys. I mean, we do eat ducks in this. We do eat duck in this country. Yeah. There are many cultures who eat duck in this country, right? But I'm not sure we go hunting for them in our parks.
That's right. Yeah. I like this guy.
So that's a little troubling. I'm also trying to understand the statement that the woman made earlier regarding roadkill. Also,
they'll just pick up dead animals.
Why are we gutting roadkill, guys? What are we doing with that nasty meat, bro? It's been sitting out in the hot sun. You gonna eat that? What are you gonna do with that? What are you gonna do with that? Right? And here's the thing: if they're eating it, okay, but if they're sacrificing it, guys, that's going to be the main moral issue, specifically in the United States of America. Guys, we treat animals better than we generally treat people.
That's true, right? Too.
So that would like be enough to enrage many, many, many people. And the reason why they're sacrificing animals, if that's the case, it would be to some random deity in the voodoo or hoodoo faith.
Santa Maria.
That's what that is. But does that make it better in the eyes of the average American? Not at all.
Not at all.
It doesn't. That's what I'm saying, guys. The people who fled and came here, their culture is so drastically different.
Yeah.
Like so drastically different. I don't know what to do, guys. Right? It's too late. I mean, they themselves are literally refugees.
You have to get them out of the country.
I would definitely say that refugees specifically, if that's the case, not referring to the ones who came through the southern border, not talking about these individuals, but I'm almost positive they have like refugee status, the majority of them.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, they should have definitely been more so spread out, so they probably couldn't get a gigantic community. And
they basically turned parts of Minnesota into Somalia, right? And they even changed their state flag so it looks like some Muslim jihadi flag. It's crazy
that they would have been forced to kind of assimilate to the region's culture more so. Like, keep your culture, do your thing, right? But if you start realizing that all of the ducks are leaving the ponds because they're being taken for soup,
I'll ask around, Julie V.
That's a That's a wild one. And the woman called it a barbaric soup. It's not barbaric. It's just ridiculous how they're getting it. Because again, do they know that they can't go to the? Probably not, because most likely if they saw a duck right in Haiti, they could take it.
Yep.
Most likely.
No ducks in Haiti, though.
Again, they just don't understand the culture. That's what it seems to be, at least, guys. But all right, listen, you guys all have an absolutely amazing day. Enjoy your day thoroughly,
guys. Before we go,
all right, so that was pretty good, man. I like that video. Now, so guys, this is a little disturbing. So allegedly, oh, by the way, you just can't get stuff like Google and YouTube and all these other channels. They bury this stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to like delete this video again, like they did my last one. So this is X, and this is why the radical communists are trying to ban X, because it goes against their false narrative as they flood the country with criminals and people who hate us. But allegedly, this is a Haitian migrant who stalks and attempts to take an 11-year-old girl at a convenience store. The cashier grabs the girl and holds her hands to prevent him from abducting her. And this is what I'm talking about. And this is why I'm so angry at Camel Toe and Waltz and all these leftists, because they don't give a freaking flying F about our children based upon what I'm seeing with my lying eyes. Take a look at this. Just check it out. This is going to blow your freaking mind. I'm going to turn the sound off because I don't want to get in trouble. Just watch this. This guy just walks in. Obviously, he's not from here. He's not an African American. He's Haitian. You can tell by looking at him. Just walks up to this little girl, tries to take her. She's terrified. And he's just standing there going, why can't I rape her? You know, why can't I have this girl? I mean, could you imagine? They're letting these people into our country that do this kind of crap, guys. This is not acceptable. And to see these ABC guys try to say that this stuff's not going on at that last debate just made me sick to my stomach. This is disgusting. All right, so we'll just keep on playing this until the show's over so you guys can get an idea of why I'm so angry. See, I'm a father. I have 2 kids, and that's my world. I cannot believe that these Marxists are allowing these people into our country. If you have children, there is no way you should ever support this kind of stuff. This is just absurd that this is happening in the United States of America. We need to take our country back. We need to make our country safe. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. Well, that being said, again, if you want to help support my channel, take a look at my book on, I'm not selling this soft cover right now, okay? This is something that this is my mock-up, but this will be volume 1. I have a digital version of this book on my journey to becoming a practicing lawyer with no law degree or undergrad. And I talk about my journey, about how I did it, you know, with no law degree or undergrad. And of course, some of you guys don't know this, but I actually, after I became a practicing lawyer and was sworn into the bar, I went ahead and went to law school. A lawyer went ahead and signed for me. Gary Dordick, one of the best personal injury lawyers in the world, signed for me to help me get into a law school, UWLA. It's a Cal Bar certified school. They waived the LSAT and they waived my first year courses, contracts, torts, and criminal law, because I'd already passed the baby bar, and which is really difficult. It was less than an 18% pass when I took it. And I aced it and ultimately became a lawyer with no law degree or undergrad. But then I went ahead and got a Juris Doctorate afterwards, because I knew there would be some scumbag academic who would say, oh, well, you're not really a lawyer because you didn't go to a law school, which, by the way, there weren't even law schools up until, like, I think the first part of the 1800s. Everybody became a lawyer the way that I did, which is by interning for other lawyers and judges and learning the law that way, similar to the way you would become a stonemason. And that's how it was done. So my book talks about that. If you want to get a copy of my book, just go to my YouTube page. I'm going to share it with you guys in the sidebar really quick. And it's my YouTube page, or you can just go to my PayPal, and I'll put that in here as well. It's like $20, guys, $19.99, no big deal. even if you don't want it for yourself, it's a really great way for you to help me support my channel, because I don't have, I'm not Chili de Castro. I don't get a bunch of super chats and coffees and all that from you guys. So I really rely on, to keep my wife from riding me. To keep my wife from riding me about spending so much time in these chats, I have, I try to, say, hey, look, I sold a bunch of books. So help me out, and I'll help you out by coming back and giving you guys some good material to watch. And for those of you who just joined me, this is an alleged Haitian immigrant. I believe this is actually in Springfield in a liquor store, allegedly trying to abduct a little girl. And he's really pissed off because he thinks that he should just be able to have his way with her. I mean, check this out. I mean, watch this video one more time, especially you ladies who think that, oh, we love migrants. They're so great. Yeah, they're great if they come in legally and they're forced to assimilate and take a test. But just letting these people into our country, it's insanity. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. It's absolutely insane that we let this mother effer into our country. Any of you guys who were children, would you ever have wanted somebody like that to come up to you in a liquor store? Are you kidding me? And to have ABC and CNN and PMSNBC lie and cover this stuff up and tell us not to believe our lying eyes. I mean, it's just disgusting what's going on with our news, with the government allowing this garbage to happen. Oh my God. Thanks, Bill. Hey, I got a super chat or something. Bill Roberts hooked me up, man. Thank you, Bill. Well, that was kind of you. And again, if you can also go to my see, I've got a PayPal to buy my book if you want. Guys, if you want to get a copy of my book, you go to the homepage of my YouTube channel, and I just shared the link in the sidebar. But we'll go back to this video because I want you guys to see what's going on in our country right now. Our country, our government, the Biden administration over the last 2.5, 3 years, whatever, has allowed apparently at least 20 million illegal aliens into our country. None of them have been given the jab. We have no way of knowing if they have diseases. We do know that the Haitians have a very high incidence of tuberculosis, and that in Florida, there have been several outbreaks because they get jobs as short order cooks, breathing into your food. So that's another reason why we should have a legal immigration system where people are vetted. They're given a background check. For example, when my wife became a citizen, she had to undergo a physical. She had to go through a lot. She had to learn about American history, and she loves her country, and she stands for the flag. She stands for the national anthem, and she's proud to be an American. And those are the kind of people we want in our country. She's so proud that she found an American who was a Marine and who loves his country. And I'm so proud of her for taking that step to learn about her country and become a real American citizen. Give me a bunch of ones for my wife becoming a legal citizen and loving her country, as opposed to somebody getting a free phone and free everything for the next 7 years while they wait for their administrative hearing, changing our census and guaranteeing that people like Camel Toe Harris will stay in power using the census to change our electoral college. It's disgusting what's happening to our country, everybody, and we need to take it back. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. And with that being said, guys, hey, we've had a big show today, a really, really big show. And now Michelle Henry is asking, I have asked about Cash App. So Michelle, I guess you missed the first part of the show, and that's totally cool. Just give me 20 push-ups for not staying here for the last 2 hours. No, but all I have right now, guys, is PayPal. And here's the problem, Michelle. I'm not super technical. So I need a volunteer to help me set up some of these apps. I just don't, nor do I have the time. So if somebody can help me, I would really appreciate it. Volunteers are always appreciated, because I'm doing this on my own dime, because I'm so terrified about what's happening to our country, and that no one's out there doing what I'm doing. There's really nobody out there. I get it. There's cop watchers. Chili does his thing, but I'm more of a variety show. I want to hold the government accountable, not just police, because I believe that law enforcement officers are merely emulating the scumbag politicians that they work for. And I believe the best way to keep the government honest is to only put people into power who know the law and mean to keep it well, the same way that Thomas Aquinas preached. So I recommend that you guys read the writings of Thomas Aquinas. Sir William Blackstone's commentaries on the English law, and that you read Wealth of Nations by, I think it was Adam Smith, and learn about laissez-faire capitalism, about natural law, about the difference between the great Leviathan, which would represent the left, which is an all-powerful government that controls every aspect of your life. That would be the left. And then you'd have natural law, which I think is more middle of the road, which just simply teaches that kings aren't the only people who have divine power. The common man also has the same power granted to him by his creator, as well as the woman, of course. That is, if you believe that men are men and women are women, which is another story for another day that we'll discuss. But I'm just going to look in the sidebar, thank everybody, and then we're going to pass out for the night. Chad Crum, thank you for showing up, brother. I really appreciate your support. Stacy Parenti, you rock as always. GSD Godly, that is true. America's hands are drenched in innocent blood, just as is every country to some degree or another. But the American ideology of the Bill of Rights and the Constitution binding the government by the chains of the Constitution, all that stuff has been thrown out the window by modern politicians. America is not a democracy, or it's not supposed to be. Democracy basically leads to death because it basically enables the majority to decide the rights of the minority or the individual. Under a constitutional republic, the rights of the minority are what matter. And I don't give an F about what the majority wants, because let's face it, guys, the majority don't want to do shit. The majority of people in unions, if you've ever been in a union, you know what I'm talking about. It's like, why are these guys getting raises when I'm the only one who's working and these other guys are sitting around drinking coffee? That is the problem with democracy, is they all sit around waiting for the other guy to do the work, but they all want to get paid equally. In a republic, it's a merit-based system. If you don't work, you don't eat. So there's a big difference. Now, and of course, all of our founding fathers universally condemned democracy. And if you go to my YouTube channel and you look at under my posts, I actually have a post about maybe 7 or 8 down that shows you quotes from our founding fathers about what they thought of democracy. One of them was, a democracy is 2 wolves and a sheep showing up for dinner and deciding what's on the menu. In a republic, it's 2 wolves and a well-armed sheep showing up for dinner and deciding what's on the menu. You understand, right? Because the well-armed sheep can protect himself from the majority. And you notice that the radical commies want to take away your firearms rights. Well, that's for a reason, because they don't want you to be able to fight back. Look at what's happening in Canada, guys. That is exactly what's going to happen here if we don't get these people that came here illegally out of the country and force them to come back legally, force them to assimilate. Why is this particular presidential administration trying to turn our country into a third world backwater? I don't get it. Why are we allowing people like this into our country? And why is the communist news media covering it up? That's what I want to know. I want to know that from you. Put it in the comments if you can tell me why. Now, with that being said, make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because we never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel. And you know they want to, and they probably will at some point. Thank you again for the $20 super chat. That was dope. Get a copy of my book. Again, I'm not selling the soft cover book right now. I'm selling a digital version, okay? This book right here would probably run about $40 to $50. The one I'm selling online is $20. It's digital. Take it, buy it, show it to your friends, show it to your family, use it for inspiration so you can, remember this, guys. Look, I'm a blue-collar guy. I worked construction, worked odd jobs, had a limo company, had a construction business, slept on park benches so I could afford to become a lawyer, lived off my savings from selling my limo business, and became a lawyer with no law degree or undergrad. Don't tell me it can't be done. Don't tell me it's because I'm white that I'm successful. That's fucking bullshit. I'm successful because I achieved great things, because I had people around me who loved me and supported me. And you can do the same thing. And I'm here to support you. And I love everybody on this planet. I just expect them to live to a certain standard. Guys like this coming in here trying to abduct little kids, they do not belong in our country, period. So make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save. Have a great day. Hopefully I'll see you this weekend, guys. It's been a great show. Thank you, everybody.